Hello? Hello. Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Very good morning. Hope you're keeping well. It's cold. It's freezing. Well, it's not technically not freezing, but it's cold. It's a very kind of 5 degrees. 5 degrees in Tipperary. It was like it only got up to this about half an hour ago. It's been freezing, lads. But I hope you're keeping well. You join us here on this Thursday morning. We continue with our Navigraph Academy as we learn some of the fundamentals, maybe refresh our skills, maybe learn new skills. Who knows? As we progress with the entirety that is Navigraph Academy. And I've been enjoying this, and it's all free, right? So we're going to continue on with it. Then a little bit later on, we're going to plan our VATSIM flight for this evening. Tonight, we're taking the DC-6. Right. From that place, Chicago, all the way over to Minneapolis. So there's probably good reason you don't see many folks flying DC-6 is on VATSIM. But we're going to find out. It's going to be grand. Don't worry about it at all. But anyway, what was I at there now? Yeah, just you know, more of the same on a Thursday morning. You know what I mean? We got deliveries, we got new curtains, and a box from Lego arrived, and I'm not allowed to open it. Oh no. I imagine it's like something to do with, I hope it's like Star Trek. Imagine if she got me Star Wars. That would just be like, what is this? Right? It's Star Trek, right? Don't mind that Star Wars stuff. That's at all not important. But anyway, I digress. Yes, this course that we're doing on the Navigraph Academy, the first part of our Virtual PPL, this is all about learning the aircraft, the forces, all the physics, what happens when we apply power, when we turn, coordinated turns, stall recovery, climbing, descent, all that kind of good stuff is there. The idea being is, well, if you're brand new into aviation, this is pretty much following real world training, so it gives us a good bit to go on. But also, if you have been simming and maybe there's some procedures you get a little bit caught out on, this is a great way to go back and refresh. So that's where it's all at. But as we do on our daytime streams, for which me schedule's up in the hoop, but we'll get back to it. If you have any questions about the sim, perhaps you're having any issues or just questions in general, like what did you have for breakfast, do be sure to let us know in the chat and we'll get them answered as quickly as we can. Do you know what I mean? But who's here? Look, the buttons at this time of the morning. That's Jeff Faviano. Good to see you, Jeff. Listen, right, I have it on very good, this is all rumour, I have it on very good authority, we will get Sim Update 4 today. Well, here's the thing, right? So the 8th is Monday the 8th. Right, and that's when PlayStation, opens the floodgates to all the normal people who bought the sim. Whether or not now they're going to give a Sim Update 4 before that, it's anyone's guess. But I reckon today is the day. Just because Jeff has arrived in, and it's that time for Jeff, right? Yeah, we're getting it. Yeah, it's pure rumour. But never let the truth get in the way of a good rumour. We've all learned this before. Do you know what I mean? But I hope you're well, buddy. Welcome aboard, man. Who's here? Look, Spitfire RAF 100. Top of the morning to you. Happy Thursday. The Impossible Face. Time for the weekly pre-work panic shuffle. Yes, we like to call it planning. You're very welcome in. Gar Gaming. Hello to County Galway. I tell you, it's fierce burr over there with the Atlantic coast. Soaring AJ is here. Good morning to you. 85 streams in a row. That's unbelievable. Thank you very, very much indeed. Cracker is in the house. Welcome aboard. Bell Bro is here. Hope you're well, buddy. Sledge, a very good morning to you. Malky Mac is here. Good morning, Malky. Hope you're well. Mrs. Upside Down, TBHI inverted, has entered the chat. Upside down and inverted. At the same time, I don't know how she does it. Welcome in. Apache is in the house. Good afternoon. Good noon, he says. Corn Wolf is here. Top of the morning, man. How's your morning going? Abdul is in the house. Welcome in. Toto 2495. Good morning. Yes, we're all working. Yes, very important work. Seminar calls. Yes, very important. But we're really here to learn. You know, well, you will learn. You'll either learn what Navigraph intended you to learn, or you will learn how not to do things, because I'm doing it. So you're going to learn something. 98 Vulcan, good morning. Hope you're well. Big Walter, welcome in. Eamon 1973, hope all is well. Filthy grabs a coffee and says good morning. Now, Filthy, do you take milk or sugar? It's an important question for coffee. Mac Vision, hope you're well. Who else come in the door? Big Carlo, top of the morning to you. It's a bit cold in Milwaukee. Come here now. Speak of the devil. Do they actually make Milwaukee tools in Milwaukee? Right? Because I have Milwaukee tools. You know, I got them as models to put on the shelf. If anyone were to come in, oh, no, we see you're kind of a handy person. Yes. I'm not really. You know, I get blisters from pointing. Right. But Milwaukee, interesting stuff. And then Jeff is here 28 months. Thank you very, very much indeed, Jeff. Hope you're well, buddy. It's been a minute. Do you know, the whole world is off doing its thing. But loving all the content, man. And also, this time of the year, is this kind of storm season-ish? Really? Not really. I'm looking forward to more of that. Do you know? But thank you very, very much indeed. Nace is here. Hello, Nace. Really, he says, it could be today. I need more energy drink. Is it right? Could be. You know, the real question is what comes first, SIM Update 4 or the PMDG 738? I'd say SIM Update 4 because the PMDG machine, I don't know. I heard someone say yesterday, it could have been Jamie, but I heard someone say yesterday they're going to delay it a week. You know, because there's feedback. Yeah, who knows? Hassan is here. Good morning, Hassan. Wait now, is it your Friday? Get out of that, is it? Welcome to Thursday. We're all here. And you are too. You know, surprise. But tomorrow's Friday. But unless, of course, you're on that side of the pond. Coffee, no milk, no sugar. None of the instant coffee either. Coffee is a ritual. Grind beans to the pouring process. Hassan, I'm going to change your life. In your coffee, without sugar or without milk, I highly recommend putting in a drop of maple syrup. It is absolutely insanely good. It's savage. And when I say a drop, you know, go lively with it. Maple syrup in your coffee, lads. You haven't lived. Haven't lived. But anyway, let me see here now. Roy is in the house. Welcome aboard. Hope you're keeping well. Malky says, you are a wee handy person. Yeah, right, you know, Jesus. I've been told I'm a monster by Mrs. Filthy because I drink my coffee black. Monster! You've no room for, like, sweeteners or... To be honest, sometimes I drink coffee black. You know, I don't... Well, a bit of, you know, how was your father goes into it. But usually, you know... maple syrup, you know... Unless, of course, it's in the evening time and you need to put an old drop of, you know what I'm saying? A couple of cloves, maybe. And cream. Or, do you know what? Coffee, drop of whiskey, and then they put Baileys in it. You know. I thought you'd just be cream. No, they put Baileys in it. Things are going for a terrible turn. Cornwolf says, not sure on the delay, but yes, there is feedback about the external model. Ooh. North Coast Mike, good to see you. Jeff is off to bed. Take care, my dude. And thank you very much indeed. Good night to you. I shall give it a try once. No, give it a proper try. I prefer my coffee black too, and so strong it wakes up my ancestors. You see, here's the thing, right? Mrs. Two-Tone, she's able to drink coffee at night time and not be awake. I don't know how she does it. She'll have a coffee in the morning, then she's a coffee when she comes in from work, and then she'll have another coffee at around like 8 o'clock. She'll be like, you know, lights out, Cinderella come 10 o'clock, gone, right? I can't do that. If I drank coffee at that time of the night, hello, I'd be up for the night. And then you drink coffee when you think you need it and it doesn't do anything. You know, you can have a can of Monster and go for a nap. What? Really? Jesus. No, Monster now, that'll keep you going. Status yellow gale warning for all coasts of Ireland and on the Irish Sea, says North Coast Mike. Be Janie. Met Erin in early this morning. Any news on the patronages amongst us? Roy, you changed your name. Just Roy, FKA Froy. There is. I've been working on stuff. I'm still working on the whole kind of streaming guide, right? It's gone into like a technical area at the moment because we're talking about bit rates and, you know, how things work and all the jazz. But no, there's I've loads to do. It's frightening the amount of stuff I have to do. I never thought it was going to be this busy, but we will get around to it, Roy. Of course we will. Soon. Hashtag, you know, hieroglyphics, but soon, 100%. Cornwall says, kind of Monster and still sleep. That's nuts. Somehow I have a bit of Australian in me because I love me flat whites. Right. Hassan says, I'm the same. Caffeine doesn't have much effect on me. That's nuts. I don't know how you do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. Do you know, coffee or Monster in the evening time. I'd be up for the night. Do you know, Anna Cross, it's good to see you, bud. Hope you're well. Naughty Gnome is here. Did your hair fall out? No, I assaulted it this morning. I was in denial. I was trying to grow it. And so if you leave just enough up there that you don't need to do anything with it, but at the same time keeps your head somewhat kind of warm. That was the mission. Right? So mission complete. And it's very. The settings on it wrong. It's all transparency. For those on Patreon, this is where you put in color coding or what's the thing called? Hang on. There's a name for this. Colour key or chroma key, in fact. Yes, that's what all they do. But yes, it's very, very sad. My microphone seems an awful lot higher these days. I don't know what it is that I've done, but it is there. So I wonder, do I need to dial it down? Oh, remember this, lads, minus 5.5. We're bringing it down to minus 6.6. No, 6.5. We'll go with that and see what happens, right? The name is more like the artist Prince used. FKA stands for formerly known as. Right. Thank you, Naughty. 5x5. Yeah, so we brought it down now to minus 6.5. Naughty, I'm flying the DC-6 tonight. Great idea. There's going to be problems. Let me see. Merv, compared to me, says Ozflight Simmer, he says, your hair is like Fabio's, the most beautiful man on the cosmos. Good hell, Fabio. Fabio did have lovely hair. I'm sure he still does. But yes, he had the sort of hair you'd sit there and you'd say, Jesus, wouldn't I love a head like that? Right. The beard to match it as well. I don't have these things. It's terrible bad. But Shane, I hope you're well, buddy. Welcome aboard. Naughty Gnome says in minus 20. Wait, it's minus 20 tonight. Oh, Jesus. Chalks is here. Good morning. Just watch the bird strikes on the roller coasters. Yeah. I'd need to start wearing a hat. I think, a gentleman's hat, a top hat, could look very appropriate. But yes, maybe not. I don't know. Kubi Montana is in the house. Good morning, buddy. Hope you're well. Hope all is well in the realm. And I don't know. Murph, don't worry. You have to watch my hair with a microscope. You wear a hat. Yeah, I don't know. It's in a constant state of, shagging off. It's terrible, isn't it? Right. But anyway, we shan't worry about these things. Not at all. It's not important. I did no fear of sunburn on the top of me mallet because, well, I'm inside. Although and when I'm in New Zealand next year, I have a cowboy hat. That makes me look even more interesting. You see, people ask, my God, man, that is an interesting hat you wear. Then I tell them the story. But yeah, it's all good. Sim Guy, good morning. Hope you're well. Right, shall we get into it? Let's press a button. That kind of takes the shine off the head, actually. I should maybe keep that light off. But anyway, come over here, look. Now. So last week, we started with the Navigraph Academy. And I got to say, I've had a lot of fun with it, right? So we're going to continue on. So what we have, will that be the sim? And we'll press a button. And then we'll come over here and we'll press some more buttons. And we'll have a look at what's happening over here. So what we're doing with this course, I want to complete it myself, but I said it'd be kind of boring if I just sat on my own and did it. So the idea being is, well, collectively we can do it, and if anyone has any questions, let us know. If I can answer them, I will. If I can't, I'll bluff. And it should be grand. So where we're at the moment, well, we're moving on now to something interesting. Last week, we looked at the effects of the controls on the aircraft, introduction and the familiarization, of course, when it comes to setting up our camera views, setting up our controls, the axes, getting all the sensitivity sliders set up. And then, of course, we were doing some level flight and turns. You increase the power, the nose come up, you drop the power, the nose goes down, coordinated turns. And what happens then when you apply some rudder input and all the different forces it has on the aircraft? This is kind of basic stuff, but it's amazing. We tend to forget some of the basic stuff, you see. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go into the course catalogue and into the Virtual PPL. And this is how we're progressing. And all of this is free. So you can do the very, very same. You can log on to Navigraph. You don't need a subscription. You can log in, create your own account, and you can do this step by step as well. I think it's brilliant. But anyway, we're going to move on to climb and descent. So climbing and descending is more than just pitching up and down. We're going to discover all about the airspeeds, the attitudes, and techniques that make altitude changes perfect Ooh, this is definitely something that can catch you out. It's relatively straightforward to climb. You apply a bit of power, you aim for your altitude, you watch your vertical speed, and you're happy out. Descending can a lot of times catch people out, particularly if they're trying to schedule when should they descend. You know, they want to be at a certain altitude by the time they arrive at a certain waypoint. Well, how do they plan that? Most of the time, they leave it up to the MCDU or the FMS gods. They will decide, here is your top of descent, you will now start descending. As in, you're at the top level of your descent path. That's what they mean by top of descent or top of climb. You're at the very, very top of that scale. So you need to either go up or down depending on what you're doing. But when we descend, there's a couple of things we need to be careful of because, you know, as we point the nose down, well, gravity takes over, our speed will increase. So we need to plan for that. But we also need to be careful then about how we navigate and get around as we are descending because, as you know, sitting in something like a Cessna 172, well, you do have a number of blind spots. You can't see directly out the back, for example. You can't see, 2 feet below you. This kind of crack. So it's all about understanding what's happening with the airplane in terms of our energy management, but also from a simmer. What do we need to be keeping an eye out for or be very aware of when we're planning to climb or indeed descend? And later on in life, it gets all into when you're dealing with weather, right? When you're doing VF4 flying or even IF4 flying, there are certain rules when it comes to climbing and also descending because at different altitudes, there's particular climbs, grading climbs or degree of climbs needed, and the same with descends as well. So it gets interesting and they vary region to region, ICAO stuff with EASA in Europe, or it could be on the FAA side in the United States. There are different rules around it, but these are the basics of climbing and descending. P.S. Mirandai, hello there, good morning. James, good to see you, buddy. How do I land like Ryanair? Close your eyes and just think of Ireland. Bang. El Bapino, bonsoir, mon ami. Hope you're well, buddy. So let's get started. Goosh, into the lesson. So today we're going to learn, we're going to dive into the fundamentals of climbs and descents, from gaining altitude with precision to descending smoothly and under control. These manoeuvres are essential building blocks for our upcoming lessons. Let's get started. Now, before we get into the gadget, descending, and what they're saying here is smoothly and under control. What do you think the biggest challenge is for pilots, not just real world pilots, but in the sim as well? What's the biggest challenge we have landing? Our biggest challenge is what? When we try to land? Is it your altitude? Is it your airspeed? What do you guys think? The biggest challenge that we have, is it our distance perhaps to the runway? What's the most difficult thing about landing or trying to land? Do you know? Because it'll catch everyone out, especially when you're starting off. You could get about crosswinds, sure, but this is more about getting you laid up or, lined up with the runway. You'll see a lot of people, they're either coming in way too high or they're coming in way too shallow. They're, way too low. Meaning that if they're up high, they're going to try and land. That's going to increase their speed. If they're too low, they may not have enough speed and they bash into the runway, right? So speed is a huge thing, yes. But when it comes to landing, it's your altitude plays key to this. Knowing when to descend, when do you start putting the nose down? A lot of the runways in the sim, they'll all have PAPI lights, right? And they'll give you an indication to say if you're on above or below a predefined glide slope. And most of those glide slopes are aimed at about a 3-degree decline, right? That's all well and good for airliners and all that jazz. But in general aviation airplanes, well, we don't necessarily need to follow the PAPI lights. They're a great visual aid, but it's not very important for us because we're traveling much slower and we're going to be able to stop much quicker. You see? So it's all trying to figure out, how do you make sure that your altitude is going to be correct? Especially when you're trying to land. As I said, if you're too high, okay, people have the tendency, I'm a little bit too, sure, we'll try and land anyway. And that's where you can get into all sorts of problems, right? So, Lear, top of the morning to you, buddy. Hope you're well. Speed is also one I struggle with. Yeah, speed. In the wide bodies, absolutely. Speed in a wide body aircraft, I mean, yes, you can depend on your autopilot or your auto throttle if it's fitted, but it's all about judging the distance between where you are and where your touchdown point, your aiming point is on the runway, right? And then your final kind of descend. And as you're coming in, you get into the flare, and then, you know, hopefully it's a touchdown that you can make it stick. But let's say, for example, we're flying around and we're at 4,000 feet, right? Or 4,500 feet. And we need to be at, you know, 1,000 feet within 3 miles. How do we figure that out? I mean, we don't just arrive to the airport or to the pattern, the circuit, at 4,500 feet and then spiral down and get down to that level. So you have to plan, okay, the current speed of the aircraft, the current fuel usage, all of these things you take into consideration. At what stage am I able to descend? Now, you have extra stuff to throw onto that later on. You could be in controlled airspace, therefore ATC are going to talk to you. You have all this stuff to consider, right? So we'll move on and have a look at what they're talking about here. First of all, recall that in flight, or in level flight, lift equals weight. Lift equals the weight, and power equals drag, right? Power, thrust, same thing. So if your lift is equal to your weight, your thrust or power equals your drag. So for every action you're doing, there is an opposite. We were talking about this last week. As a pilot, always try and make yourself aware of the opposite. Okay, if I do this, what's likely to happen? You know, plan B. Always come up with a plan B, all right? So to climb, the aircraft must overcome gravity and generate additional upward force. The most common method is to raise the nose and apply extra engine power, which pulls the aircraft into a higher altitude. Increasing power helps prevent excessive speed loss and maximizes the climb rate. Okay. As shown below, part of the engine's power is now directed upwards, effectively lifting the airplane to a new altitude. You can see it here on the graph, right? You're applying power, the nose, he's pitched it up. Therefore, your power should increase. Your drag also increases, but the vertical component is now being pushed upwards. You're generating more lift. Most climbs are flown at full power. When we are at maximum power, airspeed is directly linked to the pitch attitude. Now, attitude isn't like, oh, you have a shocking bad attitude. Attitude is almost like the stance or the profile in which the airplane is. If the nose goes up or the nose goes down, it's affecting the attitude of the aircraft. That's why we have inside the aircraft on the instruments, you have what's called an attitude indicator. It's not letting us know if it's in good form or miserable. It's letting us know the attitude of what the aircraft is doing, right? And we'll have a look at that in a while. So, most climbs are at full power, which we know, right? Within limits, obviously, of the aircraft, right? A higher pitch means a lower airspeed and vice versa for a lower pitch attitude. Makes sense? So if you apply your power going up the way, you're going to start reducing airspeed. But if you were to pitch down, you're going to start picking up airspeed. If we are targeting a specific climb speed, which we are, let us get back to that soon, power will control your climb rate. If we were to reduce power, we'd have to lower the nose to maintain the airspeed, and that would lead to a reduction in climb rate. It may feel counterintuitive at first that pitch governs speed while power governs climb, but with practice, the relationship will become second nature. Okay. In descents, the process is essentially reversed. We reduce our engine power and allow the nose to lower. Gravity then pulls the aircraft forward, enabling us to maintain airspeed even with less power. Essentially, part of the weight is now acting in the same direction as the power, adding to it. Of course, as we do this, we also lose altitude. It makes sense. You drop the power, the nose dips, the aircraft is now pointing downwards. Weight is now playing a part. The attitude of the aircraft is pointing down. And as you're now descending, your altitude is dropping. At a fixed airspeed, the power now determines the rate of descent. More power means a reduced descent rate, and a lower power setting increases your descent rate. It's the same principle. If you're in a nose down position and you apply power, well, the nose will try and come up. If you're in a nose down and you drop the power, the nose will dip further down. If you counter that and you're climbing, you're at full power. If you drop the power, the nose will start to drop. If you increase the power, the nose starts to rise. It's the same thing, right? So, what we have here, at a fixed airspeed, the power now determines the rate. More power means reduced descent, and a lower powering increases it. At the same time, changes in pitch will affect both airspeed and vertical speed, so careful coordination is required. So you need to keep an eye on it. Airspeed perfection. Climbs and descents must be flown at specific airspeeds for both aerodynamic and performance reasons. Martin will explain the details in the video, but for now, focus on memorizing these figures, specific figures, for a Cessna 172. Now, you can argue this. I've seen in manuals you climb for 74 knots, and they always shout 74 knots, right? But I also know an instructor that says it's very hard to read 74. Aim for 75. There's a clear line. Keep the needle on the line. So 75 knots, right? And it'll vary for other aircraft, but for this lesson, we are specifically looking at the 172. Our climb speed is 75 knots. Climb speed. All right. Power on descent speed. So our cruise speed is going to be somewhere between 95 and 105 knots. Power on descend. Power off descend, right? So think about it. So power out, our descent speed is going to be in and around 68 knots. Why would you think that's important? The way we're saying keep the airspeed, aim for that airspeed. Any ideas why that might be important? They're not telling you maintain a specific vertical speed. They're telling us keep a specific airspeed. Because as I said earlier on, if you match and hold a specific airspeed, that will dictate as to what attitude and your vertical speed the aircraft can achieve, because you're aiming at one point. I want to maintain 68 knots or, 75 knots. So your power is applied. You've set your power, right? All you need to do then to adjust that, you will adjust your pitch, either up or down, to maintain that speed. Your aircraft will do it in a lot, more complex aircraft. They have what's known as IAS mode, and that's your indicated airspeed. So that means that the aircraft will hold a attitude or a vertical speed, if you wish, based on the current speed that you're doing. And it'll climb or descend to your altitude based on the speed you want that to hold. It's not like an auto throttle. It's a speed holder. So the aircraft is going to try and maintain that speed during a climb or during a descent, because it will change where your pitch is. All right. Now we get on to prop wash or propeller wash. In both climbs and descents, we adjust engine power. When we increase or decrease power, the propeller's aerodynamic forces begin to influence the aircraft's stability. Of these effects, the prop wash is most noticeable in a 172. Prop wash is created by the spinning propeller, which sends a spiraling stream of air around the fuselage. This airstream strikes the fin and causes the airplane to yaw. On the Cessna's clockwise turning propeller, as seen from the cockpit, so you're sitting in the cockpit, the prop spins clockwise, right, over to the right. Does anyone know an aircraft that spins to the left if you're in the cockpit perspective? We have some of them in the sim. Usually old aircraft, right? Usually old. That's a bonus question, if you can answer that. But basically, the airstream is now turning like that. Think of visualize, the American football, the spiral, or maybe you're into shooting. Think of a rifle, you're inside the barrel of a rifle. These are called rifling, they're the grooves in the rifling. The idea being is when the round is put into it, or the bullet, it's designed to spin, right? Because they know as it spins, it can move through the air quicker, more accurately, yada, yada, yada. The reverse effect is from your propeller spinning, it's creating that wind vortex in behind it, which is spiraling, right? And that's now hitting your stabilizer behind you, your tailplane effectively, and it's causing the airplane to yaw a little bit. It'll either lean you or could even dip a wing, depending on what's going on behind you and how much force. So that's what it's doing, right? Adding power produces a left yaw, and when we increase power, vice versa for the reduction in power. So when we apply, would it be rotary engine spinning to the left? No, the Rotax I think spins right. Spitfire, I think, goes right. The Camel, the Sopwith Camel goes to the left. What was the other one we used to look at? A lot of the older aircrafts spun left. P-51, no, that goes right, doesn't it? I think. Stratolizer, good to see you, buddy. So you can find it, see it in the sim, and write down a note of any aircraft, especially the older ones. If you can find an aircraft that the propeller is spinning the opposite direction to most aircraft, it's a right-hand twist, or it's a right-hand spin. Most single-engine aircraft. But there are some that go the other way as well. All right? And then we can the Camel had a rotary engine. Yeah. So it all goes into the different types of engines and why the propeller does that, and the force, and there's a whole lesson on that itself. Quite advanced for what we need to figure out today. But for the Cessna, it's a right hand. Therefore, that'll have a tendency, when we apply power, the aircraft is going to start moving us right. It's almost like a twist or a yaw. If we reduce the power, that will either level it out. But if you reduce all the power, we'll have a tendency to lean a little bit left. All right. The P-51 goes to the left. Okay, sweet. So there are differences between them. Yeah. To keep the aircraft flying straight, you must apply rudder to counter this tendency. Now, with some aircraft, you have rudder trim, which is great news altogether, because you just have a small little dial. You can turn it with your hand, or it's electronic, and you can fix that trim there and then. The Cessna 172 may or may not, I don't think it has rudder trim. It's a tab at the back, isn't it? Some Cessnas have it, but it's a tab at the back. So what we must do, we would have to apply rudder input. Rudder, yeah? Because we have to move the rudder on the back of the aircraft to counteract that right spiraling down on our lower right. All right? So now that we understand, yes, something's happening because of that propeller, the more power we give it, well, the more adverse that effect would be, right? So it's time to jump into the video and watch how climbs and descents are flown correctly in the Cessna. So we have a video to watch here, and we'll bring it over. She's in 4K. We'll have a look at this, and now it goes on for 30 minutes, but we'll have a look and we'll pick up what we can from it and then see what happens. So let's see what happens.
We've mastered the art of level flight and turns, but getting your wings means flying high, but sometimes also low. Planes are capable of flying at a wide range of altitudes, and in this lesson, we'll learn how to climb and how to descend, ensuring we'll get where we want to go at an altitude of our choosing. Welcome back to Navigraph Academy. This time, we're looking at how to execute coordinated and efficient climbs and descents in the Cessna 172. First, we'll look into how to counter the yaw effect and the pitch effect that results from increasing and decreasing the power, and these are called the slipstream effects. And secondly, we'll look at climbs. We'll discuss some of the important terms, such as the speed for best rate of climb, and show how we maneuver the aircraft to achieve this climb speed. Then we'll move on to descents. And first, we'll discuss power on descents, a condition where some of the engine power remains while the aircraft is descending. Then we'll cover the idle power descent mode, called the power off descent. This is our first interaction with the emergency procedures of the Cessna, as this descent procedure is also used when we're suffering from an engine failure. In order to climb and descend, we must first understand how the propeller affects the stability of the aircraft. And let us first consider the propeller's effect on the pitch stability of the aircraft. On a plane like the Cessna, the level flight pitch stability is achieved by a combination of forces generated by the wings and the stabilizer. The aircraft tends to rotate around the center of gravity, sitting about here. But since the center of lift acts aft of the center of gravity, the wings alone would generate a rotational movement, causing a pitch down force. And this alone would lead to an unstoppable nose-down tendency and a loss of stability. And to counter this, the aircraft has been fitted with a stabilizer. The stabilizer is an inverse miniature wing, and as airflow strikes the stabilizer, air is redirected upwards, which causes an aerodynamic reaction, in itself causing a downwards force. Since the stabilizer sits aft of the center of gravity, a rotational moment results around the CG, pulling the nose up. When we are in level flight, the wing, the stabilizer, and the elevator forces counter each other, and the pitch stability remains stable. As we change our power input, we change the balance of this relationship. And let me explain how this works. The propeller is essentially a large air shuffling machine. The more we increase our power, the more air is accelerated aft along the aircraft. This accelerated packet of air is called the prop wash, and the prop wash moves along the aircraft fuselage and eventually strikes the horizontal stabilizer. As this air is accelerated, containing more energy than the free-flowing air, it causes the horizontal stabilizer's force to increase. And this, in return, causes a rotational movement around the center of gravity, causing a pitch-up tendency. And the opposite is also true. If we reduce our power, we would feel a pitch-down tendency. There are more forces at play here, but the prop wash stabilizer interaction is the primary cause of the pitch on power reaction of the Cessna 172.
Let's have a look at this effect in the aircraft. Here we are, cruising in level flight. I'll smoothly add power without using any elevator input, like this. As you can see, the nose pitches up. If I want to maintain level flight, I must push my control device forwards. Inversely, if I reduce the power, our nose was going to pitch down. I will have to pull on my control device to maintain level flight.
The prop wash also creates another side effect. On the Cessna, the propeller is spinning clockwise as seen from the cockpit. And because of the rotation of the propeller induces a rotational moment into the accelerated air, which also starts a clockwise movement. This makes the prop wash spiral slightly as it moves along the body of the aircraft. The clockwise moving air strikes the vertical fin, causing an aerodynamic force that tends to push the tail to the right.
Now, before we go on, first up, Norse Viking, good day to you, sir. Jamal is here, welcome aboard. You may have also heard of something called P-factor. There are similarities between it because P-factor on the aircraft prop could have, and usually does have, an effect with the same sort of yaw tendency. However, the difference is prop wash is to do with the airflow coming back over the fuselage, over your elevator and stabilizer. Your P-factor, what happens there is your front propeller, right, and the grooves and the shape of each propeller, similar kind of setup of a wing. If you increase the angle of attack of that propeller, so your propeller's like that, straight. Well, as you kind of start pitching upwards, well, the angle of attack of that propeller is now quite different. That can force itself its own movement on the aircraft itself. It's a mechanical kind of a turn, P-factor, and it can also create the same sort of effects on the aircraft when you apply more thrust or more power. But they're separate, but they're very similar. In particular, when it comes to prop wash, there are different aircraft that may or may not get the same effect. For example, could you name another general aviation aircraft that wouldn't be liable to the same prop wash effects? Think about this now, right? When you look at the rear of the airplane, when you look at the stabilizer in that configuration, could you think of an airplane that we're familiar with in the sim, right, that wouldn't be susceptible to prop wash to this regard? Any ideas? Have a think on that one, right? Malky, okay, you gave us the aircraft name, perfect. Why might that be? So a DA-40, for example, right? Baron, not really a Baron. The likes of the DA-40, definitely. The likes of the PA-38, definitely. The likes of the Arrow 4, definitely. And why I'm saying that is, if the aircraft configuration of the tail end of the airplane, right, where the stabilizer is, right, or stabilizer and all that, if it's in what's called a T-tail configuration, think of the Avro RJ, right, the BAE 146, that has a very high stabilizer, right, and the rudders then, where the rudder meets at the top, where your elevator is, it's in a T-tail. So that control column that we see here on the Cessna, which is low, it's actually much higher, right? So on the likes of a DA40, when the prop is spinning, the airflow, yes, it channels around the fuselage, but it's not making direct contact with the stabilizer behind it, right? So other general aviation, single prop general aviation that would have a T-tail, they wouldn't succumb to this, at least to that degree, right? So it's interesting to know the differences. Again, this is very much aimed at the Cessna, but this phenomenon that you have to deal with as a pilot, understanding how prop wash works, and again, in aviation, there's a lot of things here, right? For example, if you're sitting on the ground in a real world Cessna, the yoke, it tends to lean forward. Why? Well, because your elevators, well, they're gravity fed. They drop, your yoke controls go forward. However, they could spring into life or into action as soon as you start up that engine, because the engine is now pushing airflow down the fuselage and it's now hitting the leading edge of your stabilizer, meaning that, well, the elevators are now getting pressure pushed up on them, and that releases some of the force that's on your yoke. Force feedback stuff, that's where we're getting into the world now, because they have that natural droop. It's a droop, right? Because the controls droop forward because the elevators are gravity, they're sitting on the ground. You introduce prop wash, a whole load of wind coming off the propeller, pushing back on it, and as you increase it, that's, you know, the weight, if you like, is now reduced. So that's what we mean by that. But yeah, this is interesting stuff.
In turn, this causes the nose to yaw to the left. And this left yawing tendency, as we increase power, is called the slipstream yaw effect, or simply the slipstream effect. To avoid fatigue by having to push rudder throughout the cruise segment, the aircraft is designed to have close to zero slipstream effect while it is flying in cruise flight. This means that if we increase power above the normal cruise power, we would have to push the right rudder. And if we go below the cruise power, we would have to push the left rudder.
It's easy to demonstrate the slipstream effect in the plane. As I slowly increase power like this, note how my nose will yaw slightly left. Let us go back to cruise power so that it can show how to counter the slipstream effect. As we'll increase power, we'll have to apply right rudder. To do this in a coordinated manner, I keep my eyes outside of the plane, fixed far on the horizon, and find a landmark straight ahead somewhere.
Now on this, you guys as flying, I do it myself all the time. What's our natural reaction when, you know, we apply power and suddenly we kind of get that the nose is starting to drift a little bit left? What's the first thing we all do? And we shouldn't, but we all do it. The very first thing we do, we adjust the ailerons. We tend to roll the airplane right a little bit, which is technically the wrong thing to do because, well, you're not getting rid of the drag. All you're doing is just keeping the plane level. You could start a bit of a crab there, right? And it's also not efficient. You're losing energy. Commander Balosh, good to see you. So it's always something we've done, kind of, oh, we're going this way, sure, we'll just turn the aileron. We'll just like turn our controls into where the opposite direction is. Almost like driving a car, opposite lock, turn into the skid and all this kind of crack, right? So practicing flying now, basic flying with the rudders. You know, a lot of people would use the rudders primarily. Yeah, I'm just going to use the rudder now for a bit of ground handling. That's all I really need them for, and if I need to do a slip. But you'd be surprised how much is required in real world flying. Those rudder pedals, you're constantly on the pedals, You know, one hand on the yoke, one on your throttle or mixture, whatever you're working off, and then you have your rudder pedals. That's the main work, right? So with rudder correction, you would lose energy, but far less. Yes, because you're taking the tendency of the air now hitting the stabilizer behind you, in which it's trying to yaw a little bit to the right. That causes the nose to go a little bit left. By using the rudder, you counteract the airflow yawing it. Effectively, that's what you're doing. You're just slightly counteracting it as you still manage through the air. This is why it's important to know speed. The aircraft is designed to have, you know, minimal slipstream effect at its cruising speed. When you apply full power on takeoff, you're going to get a slipstream. You go idle power or power off, you're going to get a slipstream. The aircraft are designed aerodynamically to get it as close to steady flying without that slipstream affecting it based on its airspeed. All right. Again, if you want to talk about power, that's more the P factor side of things. Don't worry about that for now. This is purely on the aerodynamic side with prop wash. All right. The impossible phase, have a good one, my dude.
Now I gently increase power, meeting with right rudder to keep my landmark fixed, unmoving on my screen. Inversely, when I reduce the power, I must use left rudder input. As I remove my power, I keep my eyes on the landmark ahead and use the left rudder input, like this. In the Cessna, the slipstream yaw effect is quite small, and you'll find that usually only a small amount of rudder is going to be required.
Now that we know how to counter the slipstream effect in both pitch and in yaw, let us consider how to enter a climb in the Cessna. Transitioning from level flight to climb involves pitching up. So let us first recall that an aircraft in level flight, we have a balance of forces as we've covered in our previous lesson on straight and level flight. As the nose points up, the balance of forces changes. Lift, drag and power follows the climbing path of the aircraft, whereas weight does not. This means that some of the propeller thrust is now acting opposite of the force of gravity. This vertical component of power is working to pull the aircraft to a higher altitude. Lift and power are now acting together to counter the weight of the airplane and to pull it to a higher altitude. However, since some of the weight is now acting afterwards in the same direction as the drag, we find that the airspeed starts to decay. This is undesirable as we aim to fly at a certain specific climb speed. We can stop this trend by increasing our power. And to achieve our maximum climb performance, we would want to maximize our power output. On most general aviation planes, climbing is usually done at full power and at fixed predetermined speeds, as this allows us to achieve the maximum climb performance. But just how much should we raise the nose? And what airspeed are we looking for in a climb? To understand this, we need to be aware of our first V speed, and this speed is called Vy. Vy is the base rate of climb speed. This is the speed that, if flown, will give us the maximum altitude gained per unit of time. It means that flying at Vy, we'll reach our desired altitude in the minimum amount of time. This is usually the desired option over the other one, which is climbing at Vx. Vx is the airspeed that gives us our best angle of climb, and this means we would achieve the largest gain of altitude per unit of distance traveled. This means climbing for a longer time, but using a less distance to achieve a certain altitude. Climbing at Vx would be beneficial when trying to climb over obstacles, and this is something we'll cover at a later stage. For now, we'll focus on Vy, which is the desirable option in most other cases, where reaching our cruising altitude in the least amount of time is best. On the Cessna, Vy is about 75 knots, and Vx is about 65 knots. These figures differ somewhat depending on aircraft status and environmental factors, but memorizing these easy-to-remember figures is good enough for everyday operations. Note that you can also see the exact airspeeds on the airspeed indicator, as shown here. But as Jason will soon tell you, your main focus should always be to find the nose attitudes that correspond to each airspeed. So try not to get stuck staring at your instruments.
Now let us see how to perform a climb at Vy. Here we are in level flight. As we prepare to enter our climb, let's find the landmark straight ahead again. Keep your eyes fixed on it. We're going to go ahead and smoothly add some power and simultaneously add that right rudder input. Let's raise our nose to right about here. See how the nose cowling rests just on top of the far horizon like this? This is our approximate Vy climb position. As airspeed starts decaying from cruise speed to Vy, we are going to lose some of our elevator effectiveness. Less airflow over the stabilizer means less aerodynamic force. This means we'll have to add more nose-up control input to keep our pitch fixed at the climb attitude. We use trim to neutralize this control input, keeping our pitch attitude stable. This allows us to have a light touch on our control device at all times. When we feel the aircraft being stable and trimmed, glance down on our instruments here. Our main instrument is our airspeed indicator. Great news, we're at 75 knots and climbing at VY. Great job there. As you can see, our altitude is increasing at a steady rate. Now, as always, we want to be eyes outside as much as possible. Having now confirmed that we're flying at VY, look back outside.
Question coming in. Flash Banger, good to see you. Why do pilots point out when the aircraft reaches 80 knots while taking off on a runway? It's a very good question. So, depending on the aircraft, right, there's various V speeds in which they want to get to, or certain transitions, right? So the 80 knots isn't universal. It depends on the aircraft. Some aircraft, they might call out 100 knots, right? And there's a handful of reasons. I can't tell you them all, but there are a handful of reasons I know. The first one is it's synchronizing both speed indicators, right? So pilot flying or pilot not flying will call out 80 knots and they'll cross-check and say, yeah, I have 80 knots as well. So they know that both airspeed indicators are synchronized, right? The second thing is it's a transition between kind of low velocity to high velocity. That call is made to say, well, we're moving fast now. That's the idea behind it. And for some airlines, they would say, well, you know, it's part of our procedure that you call this out because we know that both pilots they're synchronized. They know what to expect. They know what's happening. It's one of these little stopgaps. It's almost like a little synchronizing little switch to say 80 knots, roger, check, or cross-checked, confirmed, right? So when a pilot will call out 80 knots, there's loads of different reasons, but the three main ones I would always say, it's either going to be 80 or 100, depending on the aircraft, right? They will call it out to ensure that the airspeed indicators are synchronized, meaning what the pilot sees in front of them versus what the co-pilot sees in front of them. They're both reading the same. For whatever reason, right? Digital world might be a little bit different now. Who knows? Maybe there's a problem with the avionics. Couldn't tell you. But it's one way of synchronizing it, right? The second one then, of course, being it is that transition. You've applied your thrust. Your airspeed is alive. Yeah, the needle is moving. We can see we're now moving fast. 80 knots could be called out. V1 tends to be the point of no return. You're taking off, and that's the end of it. Right, V1, you'll often see it, especially on Airbus. Airbus pilots are trained. Once they achieve V1, their hand comes away from the throttle because they don't have power them back. At this stage, you're going up, and that's the end of it. If you lose an engine, you're still taking off, right? And then the third one, then it's like a synchronization between the pilots. That'd be my best answer, and hopefully that did the job. Nispulla, you're very welcome in. Thank you for the follow. We shall continue on.
Focusing on maintaining our pitch attitude here. Now we can settle into the climb and really take in all the views. Climbs involve transitioning from one altitude to another altitude. So at some point, we're going to have to start considering leveling off. If we're climbing to a much higher altitude, this is a concern a few minutes into the future. When we are in their intermediate climb, there's no need to scan the altimeter more than occasionally. But as we approach the desired altitude, we begin to take greater interest in our altitude. As we approach our altitude, judge when to start leveling out. About 50 feet of your target altitude is a good reference. When it's time to level off, look outside, not on our instruments. Slowly start reducing that pitch attitude to regain level pitch attitude here. Maintain the level flight attitude and full power. Trim if you need to. Check your airspeed. Once it's close to the cruise speed, prepare to reduce the power. Look outside and find a landmark straight ahead. Reduce power and maintain level pitch attitude. Reduce that right rudder input to maintain yaw. Use pitch trim as necessary to neutralize the pitch input. Check if your RPM matches the cruise power intended. If not, just make small adjustments and retrim if necessary for stable level flight. Wonderful. We're now back at level flight again at our new altitude.
Great stuff. Let's now introduce climbing turns as well. Turning while climbing is slightly different from turning in level flight. First of all, climbing turns are made at 20 degrees off bank instead of the usual 30 degrees off bank. And the reason for this lower bank angle is primarily performance. Let me explain how. You may remember from our previous lesson on turns in level flight that banking requires more lift to be extracted by the wings. This in order to maintain a constant vertical lift force. And this is usually achieved by increasing our angle of attack. Increasing the total lift extracted by the wings also generates more lift-induced drag. And this extra drag causes a decay in airspeed. But in a climb, as shown here, we want to fly at a specific airspeed, and this airspeed is usually Vy or 75 knots. And to make sure we maintain Vy, we'll have to lower our nose before we initiate our bank angle. As we start banking, our lowered nose attitude will allow us to maintain our airspeed at Vy. This reduction in nose attitude will incur a loss of climb speed. That means in a climbing turn, we're essentially trading climb rate for turn rate. If we banked excessively in our climb, we'd suffer a greatly reduced climb rate. And a bank angle of 20 degrees is a good compromise between lost climb rate and turn rate. The entry into a climbing turn needs to consider another important factor, and that is the slipstream effect. The slipstream effect will either add or subtract from the adverse yaw effect caused by the ailerons, which is a phenomenon we discussed in our earlier lessons.
Now, one thing that can be detrimental, and it's happened in the real world, I mean, there's been, unfortunately, loads of incidents. What happens is, with student pilots, what would happen is, when they're trying to turn final for landing, right? It happens all the time. They try and turn final, and because, you know, they go by the 45 degrees over your shoulder, or whatever direction you're turning final on, right? As they turn, they might be in a descent, right? Or they could be in level flight, and as they're turning, they don't realize when they bank the aircraft that much, right? It has a huge effect on your aircraft airspeed, because we know that the wind and the air is now far less strong flowing over your left wing if you're banking left, and the right wing. So what happens is, before they even know it, they lose airspeed without realizing they've lost airspeed, all during that critical maneuver of turning final, right? So what we're learning here, and it might seem like, geez, there's an awful lot to this, trying to keep these specific speeds. But once you start training yourself to it and say, I will check my speed, I'm at 75 or I'm at whatever. Yeah, I'm good for this. Attitude is looking good. Your visual reference point or your landmark, everything there is looking good. It's just one of those checks you want to do before you turn. There's nothing worse when you realize you've now turned too much, i.e. the full bank angle is so much, it's beyond the comfortable 20-25 degrees, that you now need to start applying all sorts of power to correct that. And then everything just comes out of kilter, and there's been a lot of incidents because of that. Do you know? Nerf My Aid says, my understanding for the 80 knot call out was the time to release the forward pressure on the yoke, as the nose wheel steering is no longer effective and now rudder steers centerline. It might depend on the aircraft. Sure. Like I know general aviation. But like most aircraft, if they don't have nose wheel steering, the rudder takes over usually at about 20 knots, 25 knots, depending on what the environment is doing with wind. But in a lot of aircraft, F-18s, for example, like pilot shouldn't have to use nose wheel steering after about 25, 30 knots. Because, there's enough airflow hitting the rudders, they will actually change the position of the aircraft. But yeah, I imagine a lot of this would be aircraft specific. You know, Flash says, before I used to think that the 80 knot was when the pilots would engage takeoff or go around. Not necessarily. So usually they would engage toga for again, loads of different reasons. Usually when the engines are spooling up, right? Again, it depends on the airline, depends on the aircraft. They're usually stable at around 40%, right? So they introduce some thrust, they're holding the brakes, the engines are spooling, they'll hold at 40, right? And it's usually once they get 40%, they may not even be moving, then they'll hit the toga switch. Now, toga is full power, maximum power, right? Because it's for takeoff or a go around. So toga button, throttles go forward. All right. Captain Sickbag, good to see you. Hermit Something, very good morning to you. Hope you're well, lads. But it's very interesting, like when you see all the different, all the different scenarios in which you would apply these things. This is all aimed at a Cessna 172, but in the real world, when you transition from something like a Cessna to, a Piper or to a Diamond, right, a different aircraft, in the real world, you have to be certified to operate that aircraft. You have to be, what they call it, doing a check ride. You need to do a check ride on it. If you've never flown that specific airplane before, you need a check ride. Some of the aircraft, depending on who you're flying for, will enforce it, right? But pilots generally, they'll want a check ride. What makes this thing tick? For instance, if you did all your training on a Cessna 172 and then all of a sudden you're now going to be flying in a DA-40 that has a T-tail, well, that's going to behave quite differently. So you'll need to get some sort of information, say, that's how this thing handles. You know what I mean? Hermit, thank you very much indeed. 17 months, my guy. Thank you very, very much indeed. I hope you're well. Put on the kettle quick. It's morning.
Since the slipstream effect at full power causes the plane to yaw to the left, thus requiring a right rudder input, we'd find that we need even more right rudder when entering right climbing turns. Inversely, when entering left climbing turns, we'll find that we require a very small amount of left rudder input. And if the slipstream effect is very large, we may find ourselves even pushing some right rudder instead.
All right, here's how climbing turn entries look in the plane. Let us consider a right turn first. Here we are in steady and trim climb at VY. First, as with all turns, let's look to the right and ensure there's no traffic. Then we're going to return our gaze forwards. As we prepare to enter the turn, we have to reduce our pitch attitude slightly, like this. Let's initiate our turn entry. As we add right aileron, push more right rudder. Right turns are going to require more right rudder than usual due to the combined reaction of the slipstream effect and the adverse yaw effect. As we hit 20 degrees, reduce aileron and rudder inputs. Because of the slipstream effect, some right rudder may be required here. Note how the 20-degree bank angle appears visually. Take specific notice of the nose cowling position and its relation to the horizon. We can now check our instruments to make sure that the bank angle is correct and that our slip indicator is centered. Cool, let us now consider left turns as well. Let me regain straight level climb. Okay, here we are. We're ready. Let's look to the left, no traffic. Again, look straight ahead. We're going to reduce our pitch slightly. We enter our left turn. Less left rudder is usually required since we're already compensating for that slipstream yaw effect. This is about 20-degree bank angle to the left. Take note of the nose cowling and the horizon position.
Now again, this is important because they're using full power because the aircraft is climbing. If you were in level flight, you don't need to go this extreme with it, but it's because the aircraft is climbing and because you're now using full power, because for the lesson we're going to be using full power to climb, you have this effect in the slipstream, which is from the prop wash. It's from the the vortex from the propeller coming around the fuselage and hitting your stabilizer in the back. That's why you want to apply especially the rudder inputs here, all right? And because it's full power. The tendency of the aircraft of the prop wash is going to make the nose go left anyway at full power, right? So that's why they're saying less yaw input or rudder input would be required. But again, it depends on the wind and all this kind of jazz as well. So just bear that in mind as well.
Let's check our instruments for bank angle and side slip indicator positions. It looks great.
Great job. We've now covered climbing turns. But what comes up must also come down. So now let's move on to descents. There's two main ways to descend. Power on descent, performed at a positive power setting, and power off descents, performed at an idle power, or with the engine failed. So let us first consider power on descents. Here's an aircraft in level flight. Power on descents are performed by reducing the power slightly from the cruise setting. And as we do this, we'll let the aircraft's nose slightly lower, aiming to achieve the same airspeed as we had in level flight. Doing this, the plane will now initiate a shallow descent. Looking at the balance of forces, we can now see that some of the airspeed is achieved by the forward-acting component of weight. We are now spending potential energy, which is altitude, to maintain forward speed. This power-on descent mode is favored as it provides a shallow descent while maintaining a high forward speed, ensuring we get where we want to go in an efficient and timely manner. It also prevents the engine from being cooled too rapidly, which could increase engine wear and tear. Also, when we maintain the same forward speed as in level flight, planning is eased, as we'll fly at consistent forward speeds in both cruise and in descent. Theoretically, we could do a power-off descent at any power setting of our choice. The more we reduce our power, the more we'd have to lower our nose, and the higher our vertical speed would be, assuming that we maintain the same forward speed. However, a good vertical speed target for everyday operations is around 500 feet per minute. This is an easy-to-remember figure, which can later be used by us to plan our descents into new airports. It also ensures that the power is high enough to prevent the shock cooling and wear and tear to the aircraft engine that I spoke about before.
Let's do a power-on descent in the Cessna now. Here we are in level flight again. We're cruising along at 5,500 feet. Our plan is going to be to descend to 2,500 feet. Following the target that Martin just gave us, we'll need a vertical speed of about 500 feet per minute. We're looking at a few minutes descent to get down there. We know from our experience with the Cessna that a power setting of around 2,000 RPM is good for a 500 foot per minute descent. And basically, that'll give us cruise speed, which is basically just shy of 95 knots at this altitude. As we prepare to reduce power and enter our descent, look straight ahead, finding a landmark. Let's reduce our power slightly. The reduced slipstream effect causes our nose to drop slightly. I will assist as required to put the nose about this distance from the horizon. As you can see, the pitch attitude is slightly lower than our level flight pitch attitude. Use trim to be stable at this pitch attitude. Now, check our instruments. We're interested in our vertical speed and our airspeed. As you can see, our vertical speed is about 500 feet per minute, and our airspeed is just below 95 knots. Great work here. Let us now consider what we would do if our values were a bit off. First, if our vertical speed and our airspeed is too high, we're now flying with too low pitch. The aircraft has accelerated, and the lower pitch makes us descend quicker. In this scenario, simply reduce pitch attitude. Inversely, if we have too low vertical speed and too low airspeed, our nose attitude might be too high. If this happens, we're going to lower the pitch attitude. More interesting is what we do if we see this scenario. Here we have the proper airspeed, but too high vertical feet per minute. Can you guess the issue? In this scenario, our power setting is too low. We've been forced to lower the nose more than we wanted, thus maintaining speed, but at the expense of a higher vertical speed.
Now, it's very important to note as well, on any aircraft that you fly in the sim, there is a checklist, and you can also get the performance indications, right? You get them online as well if you're using a third-party one. Developers tend to throw them in there as well. And when you fly by the published performance tables that are in your aircraft, right, the actual ones, well, the airplane will fly very, very close to those. I mean, it's a great way, even if if you're into seeing or checking, the fidelity of an aircraft add-on in a sim. People, oh, it's a great plane, oh, really, really good. And then you compare it to, what it should be doing, and it's nowhere near it, right? So, for example, you'll see them in a POH. So, like, I have a POH here for, a Chipmunk, right? A de Havilland Chipmunk. But this is going to give you the performance tables as well, I think. It should do. You'll always see them on the back. I have a Cessna one here as well, but you'll always see them, and they all, when you look at them, you're like, huh? What the? But it's
Dreamy,
just,
sleepy, nighty, snoozy, snooze.
But Lee, good to see you. Hope you're well. Do I have the performance table on this? I thought I had. If not, I have another one somewhere. Hang on now. Jeremy checklists. No. I have it on a Cessna. Hang on. Open the box, Murphy, for there's many boxes and things that live in the box. Note to self, don't put big heavy books under your drawer. I'll show you here, look. So here we have Cessna 172. I think we have our speeds in this. Limitations.
Can I get a refund?
So in your Cessna, right? Now this is the Poolies or Transair book, right? But you see them published. If you can see that on the bit of paper, these are published on the POH, right? And if you might also see something like this, 172 POH. Now they're going to be slightly different, and the reason why they're going to be slightly different, well, there's so many different makes of a Cessna, right? But if you've ever seen graphs that look like this, they're usually down the bottom here. If you've ever seen these sort of graphs, they're letting you know. See these reference tables, right? But they're going to be indicating speeds, V speeds, and all that jazz. That's what they're doing. So the information is there. Do you know what I mean? You'll find it. And when you're in any flight school, the aircraft you're training on, you will spend a lot of time learning that specific aircraft and what makes it tick in terms of, this is its best climb power or climb speed. This is its best maneuvering speed, right? That's what you learn about the aircraft. In flight sim, we tend to overlook this to an extent because we don't really need to worry about it. But if you start applying this sort of logic to your flying in a flight sim, before you know it, the control and competence you'll have over that airplane, it just increases savagely, because you're in a more commanding position. You know what the airplane should be doing. Almost at the stage where you're not even worried about what your instruments are telling you. You can actually see it from outside because you're so used to how the airplane is behaving. I mean, a quick Google search, you can find POHs for any amount of aircraft. Like, it's ridiculous, in fact, how much information there is online about aircraft. You can get into military stuff and all. Very, very interesting. But what we have here at Navigraph is very, very good because, again, it's tied into the Cessna 172 based on these V speeds. All right. I love that Cow's aircraft just pointing to the official Diamond manuals. Yeah, 100%. Like, they just say, yeah, this is what, Cirrus say, or this is what Diamond say. And on some aircraft, this is what Beechcraft say. It's very good that we have that. Which is class, Briggsy, good to see you, buddy. Happy Briggsy here. My Winwing MacDo, or MCDU, is on the way today. As a Christmas gift from the family, I have to wait to Christmas Day. Just looking, you can smell the box. Heisenberg, good day to you, sir. Hope you're well. Very welcome in, buddy. So what we're learning here is something you probably never really thought much of in flight sim. It was purely, that's where I want to go. Watch the speed so I'm not stressing the aircraft. Yeah, sure, it's grand. I'm at 1,800 feet a minute. My ears virtually have popped. We've never really considered it, right? And when you look at some of the limits that they're giving us here, they're giving us vertical profiles of about 500 feet per minute, which we would all agree, well, that's relatively easy enough. That's easily achievable. 500 feet up or down, yeah, we can do that. So it's all about trying to maintain your airspeed because you have your climb speed and descend speed. If you can work on your speed, for example, when they say, they want a vertical speed of 500 feet per minute. Now, you don't need the calculator. If you're to say, well, okay, if I'm now pitched up and I'm climbing at 500 feet per minute, and I remain like this for 10 minutes, what altitude gain are you going to get? 500 feet for every 1 minute for 10 minutes. And the same could be said, well, if you're going to be descending. If you're at an altitude of 10,000 feet and you start descending at 500 feet per minute, well, after 10 minutes, so you see where we get the idea. There's also a way in which you can calculate this, knowing what the aircraft is designed for, as in these V speeds, which are, they're listed in the POH. On a G1000, they'll put them on the screen for you. So some other aircraft, they might have them on the analog gauge as well. This is where you can start planning, okay, well, I want to be descending at my normal comfortable 500 feet per minute. So suddenly you start getting distances from different waypoints or indeed an airport, knowing that, well, when I get to this location, I need to be at the pattern altitude, or I need to be at the minimum airspace altitude. So you'll start getting the idea, and you can work it out in your head. Well, hang on, if I go to 500 feet per minute descending, and if I stay there for 10 minutes, that's 5,000 feet in 10 minutes. You get the idea, right? Your airspeed and your feet per minute. Airspeed is what you go by, because if you lock in the airspeed, that will give you the best climb or descent power ratio. All right? Hope that makes sense. Blue Star Line, good to see you, buddy. Hope all is well. Right, we continue.
In some scenarios, we do this to descend quicker, but in this instance, we like to correct to get back to normal descent rate. Again, let's check our RPM indicator and increase power to 2000 RPM. We raise the nose slightly back to our known power on descent pitch attitude. Voila, our vertical speed comes back to 500 feet per minute. Let us now consider the transition from descent to cruise. Approaching our level off altitude, I slowly add power and meet with some left rudder. Remember, we only need to add a little bit of power to reach 2300 RPM, our cruising power. Only a touch of rudder is necessary here. We make sure that our nose attitude is back in the level flight position, and retrim is necessary. We've now reached our new altitude.
The last maneuver to cover today is the power off descent. And in this descent mode, we are descending with the engine power all the way back to idle. Flying with the power at idle, we can see that the balance of forces now only involves three vectors: the lift, the drag, and the weight of the aircraft. Since power is removed, we must use some of our potential energy, that is our altitude, to ensure that we maintain a forward airspeed. Thus our weight, and in extension the force of gravity, is used to maintain the forward speed. This state is almost the same as what would be present after an engine failure. And due to this, we always fly power off descents the same way we would fly following an engine failure. Power off descents are flown at an airspeed that corresponds to the best gliding range. And this airspeed is a fixed value for each aircraft, and for the Cessna in particular, it is 68 knots.
Now, just on this one, right? In a box, man, good to see you, buddy. An important thing here is the aircraft will also state its best glide range or its glide ratio, right? And the glide ratio comes from the design of the wings, the width, the length, right? The NASA shape over them. That's every kind of wing shape has like is it NACA or NASA? But it's a design, right? So for example, something like the Fuga Magister, I think, is either an 11:1 or a 13:1 glide ratio. Very glidable, right? What's important here is during a power off descent, or if you go into an engine failure, as a pilot, you have additional options, right? And what I mean by that is you would have your best glide speed or range, right? Your best glide range, or you would have your best glide speed, because with no power, depending on the angle of attack or your attitude in which you're going to have, right, you can get your best possible speed, or as in fastest speed to get down fast if it's an emergency, right? Or you might need the longest possible range. So as a pilot, if you're faced with that emergency, you have to lean into either or, depending on where it is you're going to land. For example, if you need to get down fast and the airport is close by, well, you could pitch a little bit more to get the speed up to maintain a higher speed, because you can use that to your advantage. However, if you need to get the best possible range, because the airport is far away, well, Cessna, the 172, it's in and around 68 knots. You maintain the attitude of 68 knots. Again, it'll show you, depending on what the glide ratio is, and of course you have to consider factors like wind, weight, all this kind of jazz. you should know you'd be able to travel roughly this amount of distance at this glide ratio at that altitude. Modern avionics, GPSs, they're all getting very, very good. You might have seen it already on the likes of the GTN 750s. They'll appear this kind of a weird kind of a ring around your aircraft, this range wing or ring, right? TDS do this very, very well. And basically what it is, it's like the emergency glide, right? It's a feature Garmin put in there that if you were to lose power, and you maintain the best possible attitude, it's going to show you roughly where it is on a map that you can actually fly to. It's within a range. It's within a bell curve, right? Now, that all changes, obviously, depending on the terrain. And, as you nose down even further, the range wing or the range rings, English Murph, they'll start closing in on you. Why? Because, well, you're descending faster, right? If you were to pull up and maintain the best possible speed, the range rings will expand a little bit, but they won't go beyond what the aircraft is designed to do with its glide range or its glide ratio, right? The glide ratio. And of course, there are other things. Technically, if you're gliding, well, what do glider pilots look for? They look for thermals, and there's ways in which they can use the environment around them, updrafts, downdrafts, all these sort of things. There are a multitude of different things. Skilled pilots will say, right, well, I need to gain a bit of speed here to get over this mountain. That's the way the wind is blowing. The wind will give me a bit of a jockey back to get where I need to get to. So it's very important to know that, okay, I need to glide for as long as possible here. But we know that the aircraft is going to stall outright at a certain speed, right? It cannot sustain flight below a certain velocity, unless, of course, there's wind. If you're in a position that you have to figure out, right, I'm here, I need to get all the way over there. It should be within the glide range of the aircraft. This is where you're going to have to adjust your pitch. Right? Your pitch is going to dictate how long you can maintain that glide for, not necessarily how fast or how long it's going to take you to get there. That makes sense? Sounds great in theory. Try do it in the sim. I'll crash first. So we know why you crash.
This corresponds to the airspeed where we achieve the most lift compared to drag, which means the lift divided by drag is at its highest value. The reason for flying at this particular airspeed is simple. Flying with the most lift compared to drag ensure we can glide the maximum distance. Lift allows us to stay airborne for a long time, and minimizing drag ensure we can glide the best range during that time. Following an engine failure, it is vital to ensure we can maximize our chances of making a good off-field emergency landing. And flying at any other speed, both higher and lower than the 68 knots, will reduce the distance we cover with the engine power at idle. We'll cover emergency power-off landings later, but for now, simply keep in mind the reasons why we are flying at the best glide speed.
Why might you think if you were going slower, how would that shorten your range? Think about it. Well, I'm moving slower, therefore, I should glide longer. It's not necessarily true, because what happens is at your lower speed, remember that the four forces, for every action, there's an equal reaction, yeah? So the drag in the aircraft and the weight of the aircraft is increased because the forward momentum is reduced, right? If you go too fast, well, you're going too fast, you're going to crash low or land short. If you're going too slow, you're also going to land short. So by finding the absolute bang on the numbers, that is the speed in which the aircraft wants. With a pinch of salt for weather, weight and balance and all that jazz. That's the idea behind it. Again, that information is going to be in the emergency procedures, or it's definitely going to be in the limitations or specifications of the pilot operating handbook. It really does do dividend to learn what the aircraft should do on paper, and then you put it into the environment of the sim and go, right? So if you've ever wondered, how do they manage to get that much distance on their glide? I was going slower than them. You can understand now that if you're going slower, there's more drag on the aircraft. It's heavier. She'll drop. So that's what I mean by that.
Doing power-off descents. And that is, we want to ensure the maximum range in case of an engine failure. If we always practice our power-off descents this way, you will become very good at handling engine failures if and when they occur. And again, the best glide speed for the Cessna is 68 knots.
Let's see how power off descents are entered. To enter a power off descent, first look straight ahead, find your landmark, and reduce power smoothly to idle. As you do, you'll find the reducing slipstream effect forces a left rudder input. The nose is going to want to drop as soon as we reduce power. Our goal is to resist the pitch down moment. Use this pitch angle, which sits close to level flight attitude. This effort requires a lot of initial nose up pitch input. Make sure you use your trim. It's there to help you. As airspeed decays towards 68 knots, more and more trim is required to maintain pitch, as the elevator effectiveness is reduced with reducing airspeed. Once the airspeed is stabilized at 68 knots, the aircraft will be in a shallow descent, flying at the best lift over drag speed, or the airspeed for best glide. We're in a power off descent now. If the airspeed becomes too high, we need to raise our pitch attitude slightly. If the airspeed becomes too low, we're going to have to lower our pitch attitude slightly. As we approach the desired altitude, we must exit our power off descent in a controlled manner. Remember that we're considerably trimmed nose up. We must now increase our speed back to cruising speed. The safest way to do this is to slowly increase power to full while maintaining level flight pitch attitude. As airspeed increases to cruise speed, I can again reduce to cruise power. Let me show you how it's done. Here we are approaching our target altitude of 20,500 feet. I'm in a power off descent, trimmed and stable at 68 knots. Just as I'm about to reach 2,500 feet, let's look up. We're going to find the landmark straight ahead. I gently and smoothly apply power all the way to full. Now beware, this will induce a large pitch up force, as well as a large yawing motion that requires a lot of right rudder. This is due to the sudden increase in slipstream effect. Again, we need a trim as necessary to maintain level flight attitude. Glance down on the airspeed indicator. As the airspeed approaches cruise speed, let's reduce power back down to 2,300 RPM. As we reduce the power, make sure we adjust our pitch control to maintain level flight. Lessen that rudder input as the slipstream effect reduces as well. Finally, trim for level flight. All is well, and we're now stable at 2,500 feet.
Let's move on to the final segment, which is turns in power off descents. Turns in power off descents must consider the fact that we're now doing our very best to maintain 68 knots as exactly as we can. And this is the speed that will give us our best gliding range, and it must be flown at all times.
Let me show you how to perform power off descending turns. Here we are in stable power off descent at 68 knots, fully trimmed. As we prepare to enter a power off turn to the right, let's look to the right. Then we're going to return our gaze forward. Let's find a landmark straight ahead. We slightly reduce pitch attitude. As we add right aileron to initiate that roll, we're going to make sure to compensate with enough rudder to maintain coordinated flight. We're going to have to judge about a 30-degree bank visually. Note the nose low position. We check our instruments to verify we have 30 degrees of bank and our airspeed is stable about 68 knots. Remember, the airspeed is very important here, considering we may have an engine failure and want to glide as far as possible. Let me also show you a left turn. We check our left, look straight ahead. Again, there's our landmark. We will reduce our pitch slightly. We start adding that left aileron and simultaneously applying that left rudder. We estimate this is about 30 degrees here. Again, we're stabilized. Now's a good time to check our instruments. Good airspeed, good bank angle. I really look forward to seeing you try this out in the aircraft. Don't worry if it seems like a lot right now. We'll take each maneuver one by one, starting with the climbs. You'll find it easier than you think. It's all about looking outside, flying your nose attitudes, and using your rudder to maintain headings toward landmarks. You've got this. As always, we'll see you at the Academy website, where you'll find more preparatory material, as well as an easy way to access the training sessions for use inside Microsoft Flight Simulator. Also, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to us, and drop us a comment. That way, you can help us keep creating more educational content right here on YouTube. We'll see you in the plane.
Cool. So, a couple of things to go over there, right? For this lesson, there's quite a good bit of theory, right? But it's not designed to like scare you. It's just to make you very aware of it. Simple little things like why glance out the window in the direction you're going to turn? It's a simulator. You're not going to hit anything, right? But the idea is you learn it by real world procedures, because when you start adding the real world procedures to all or some of your flights, right? It's a different way in which you can experience the sim. And it genuinely, as flight simmers, following the real world procedures actually makes the sim more enjoyable. Because when you get a greater kind of appreciation of the work that's put into various different aircraft and ATC and all the jazz, and in particular the sim with the weather, right? So there are all these little things that we would look at. Where is this now? So in a boxman, hope you're well. Is there a recommended 172 from a third-party add-on? Asks Nerf My Age. The default one of the sim, good enough. It's good enough. There's definitely scope for like, you know, a fully fledged 172, but the Asoba one, it's good enough. King Taco, good to see you. I have my honeycomb yoke and throttles arriving today. I can't wait to dive into this training with them. I have 500 plus hours in airline tubes using mouse, keyboard, and an Xbox controller. Ooh, nice, man. Yeah, the honeycomb stuff, really, really good. I tell you what, it's not until I watch this I realise how little I know about flying. It goes to show how easy 737 is to fly once you know. And that's the thing. And you're not alone in that, Nerf. Like, there's a lot of small little things in this that Navigraph are showing you that real world flight instruction, the theory side of it, as I said, there's 7 books, hundreds of pages per book. The theory side is massive. All the ground school, navigation, meteorology, you know, radio telephony, the human forces. There's so much to learn. The real world flying is where, you know, this sort of stuff, this is the real nuts and bolts of it, because I mean, this is what you're charged for. This is the most costly part of it. It's figuring out all of these things. And you know, if you want to go down the road of real world flying, a lot of the information you learn on this course and all the courses, they will stand to you. But there's always going to be the difference in the real world. So, you know, you have this advantage of having all the information behind you. These courses are delivered by real world flight instructors, which is great. But it kind of just shows, when we look at aviation, the most basic of, you know, airmanship and piloting. I'm delighted that you're saying, you know, whoa, didn't realize that. I mean, that's the objective here. It's to bring this level of, Jay, I didn't know that. And then you go off and you try it. Because it really does stand to you then. And practice and practice and practice. And I've always said this, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. It's a great way of looking at it, right? Because we don't aim for perfection. You don't need perfection, right? Good enough will do here. But certainly when you keep practicing, it becomes permanent. What you're practicing becomes something then that you always do. You know what I mean? So what we'll do, the video, we've just watched it, just introduced to one of the core elements of flying. That's climb, descents, and the aerodynamic forces that shape them. After all, without the ability to climb or descend, well, we wouldn't get very far with flying, would we? Making the lesson is a vital milestone in our training, so let's review the key takeaways. So, performing climbs and descents. As before, we stressed the importance of relying on visual references in flight. Identifying the correct pitch attitude for climbs, power on descents, and power off descents is essential for keeping your flight smooth and under control. Below are the nose attitude positions for each of these maneuvers. So, you might hear pilot instructor, or CFIs, well, there's a little differences between them. They might say keep the cowling on the horizon, keep the nose on the horizon, keep the dashboard on the horizon. They all mean the same thing. They just say it differently, right? Yeah, Surly Dev, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, dude, that's 100%. Perfection, we can all strive for perfection, but in reality, we don't need perfection. Permanent. You learn it, you keep training, you keep practicing it, it becomes permanent. All right. So in this lesson, we're going to practice setting the correct nose attitude and then how to learn using trim to relieve the control pressure. Now, in the real world, when you're flying in an airplane and you want to pitch, you want to do a climb, as you pull the yoke or the controls back towards you, right, the nose will go up, you're feeling that force, you're feeling the weight, the physical strain. It's like holding bags of shopping or your school bag. You feel that weight on your arms, right? And on your hands. It's usually your arms you lift with. In a real world aircraft, you can trim out that weight. That's what trim does. So you would trim the forces, making the yoke feel lighter and lighter and lighter until it doesn't weigh anything anymore. That's when you know you're correctly trimmed. Now, if you have things like force feedback, the Mosa gear does this effortlessly, right? Because you can actually trim out the forces and the yoke or the stick will stay exactly where you want it to. The CLS does it as well there from Flight Sim. Excellent bits of kit. But if you don't have that, as pilots in the sim, well, we have to rely on our eyes. Visually, we need to see what's happening with the airplane. So we'll pitch the aircraft to the attitude, right? And then we're going to be trimming it. And as we're trimming it, we're actually slowly releasing the control so it goes back to its center point. In the real world, that control shouldn't move. But as flight simmers, all we're trying to do is releasing the yoke or the stick so it goes back into its neutral position, but the aircraft is maintaining that pitch angle or attitude. That's how we trim in a flight sim. You know what I mean? Idle Cutoff is here. Dave. Legend Dave. Welcome back, Dave. Good to see you, buddy. So that's what we're going to be practicing here. Now, if you have force feedback, you have an advantage straight away. We're going to operate this on that we don't have force feedback. Therefore, we need to do this visually. So as we're trimming, we can slowly and surely start releasing the back pressure we have. If there is back pressure, here's my controls down here. So if you're in a climb, you're going to pull back the stick or the yoke, and you're going to have your trim wheel or something that does your trim. And as you're trimming, it's a balancing act. As you start taking pressure off the stick, you're trimming, and the aircraft should fly perfectly straight when you've trimmed it out and the controls have gone back to zero. That's the challenge for us as flight simmers, right? So we'll also manage throttle changes and counter the yaw created by the propeller wash or prop wash. In the Cessna 172, adding power produces a left yaw, so we'll need to apply a small bit of right rudder to stay coordinated. Conversely, reducing power below cruise setting will require a touch of left rudder. All right. So a quick reference guide. The maneuver climb, we're going to apply full power, slowly introduce some right rudder. We're going to pitch the nose up until we maintain 75 knots. We're going to trim to relieve the control forces. When we want to exit it, we're going to adjust the pitch to level off, gain airspeed to your cruise speed, 95, 105, reduce power to cruise power, and then retrim. Every time you change the power setting on your airplane, you have to retrim. It's just the way it works, all right? A power on descent. We're going to reduce the aircraft engine's RPM to 2,000 revs per minute. We're going to introduce a small bit of left rudder because remember, if we're power on, it has a tendency to yaw right. Power off, it'll tendency to yaw left. So we'll put in a small bit of left rudder. We're going to pitch down for cruise speed, and then we're going to trim to relieve the control forces. It's the same crack again. We're going to point the nose down until we get to the desired speed, and we trim away the force. To exit that, we're going to increase our cruise power, pitch for level flight, and then we re-trim. Lastly, our power off descent, we're going to reduce the power to idle, pitch for the best possible glide speed, which we know is 68 knots in the Cessna, and we're going to trim to relieve the control forces. To exit that, we're going to increase back to cruise power, pitch for level flight, and then we're going to retrim. All right. Now, questions might be, and they brought it up here, in the real world, if you were to abruptly move the throttle on an aircraft, on the engine, bearing in mind the higher you go up, the colder it gets, air is hitting off the engine. If you're currently flying at, say, 2,500 revs and you suddenly kill the throttle, in the real world, that is not good for the engine. It can damage it because your heat expands and all this crack with metals and oils, and right. So if it goes from hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold, so you need to be careful. As they say, it could shock the engine or put stress on it, which is not a good day in the office if you do that, right? Rule of thumb, what I was taught, could be different in your flight school. What I was taught from a Cessna 172, you count your Mississippis. 3 Mississippis from 0 to full power as you advance the throttle. 3 Mississippis. That's what I was taught. So you're at 0, you're at idle, and you start counting. It should take you 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Full power set. When you're doing small, very minute, very small changes, doesn't really matter. Just bear in mind, but you don't want to force the thing or pull it back. Be gentle with the control input. The slower you move everything, the longer time you have to respond or to counteract it. But I always work for a general aviation propeller-driven plane, 3 Mississippis, right? 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. That's from 0 to 100% power. That's what I was taught, right? And conversely, it could be the same coming back. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. You don't want to have the power in and out. An aircraft in the sim that does this very, very well is the AccuSim Comanche. If you kill the throttle straight away, the engine hates it. And you probably pick up all sorts of problems. The carburetor will be screaming at you. You've icing. You've all these things, right? So that's an aircraft that does it very, very well. I think the DA-40 does it well because the Spitfire does it really well. You kill the throttle straight away in a Spitfire. That Merlin, the Rolls Royce, it'll start coughing and spluttering all over the shop, right? It's very, very good the way it does it. Belbro has a rudder question. So you hold a bit of right rudder as long as you're over the cruise speed, then return neutral on cruise speed. Yes. When you say over, it means when you apply full power to the engine in the 172, right? Because the propeller is spinning clockwise, it's creating that kind of slipstream. The wind, the prop wash is now circling around the aircraft and it's hitting the back of your plane. It's hitting your stabilizer, meaning that it's going to try and dip your right elevator down a smidgen. And if it does that, well, that's going to drag your nose over to the left. You counteract that by adding in a small bit of right rudder, but that'll only happen if you're at full power, right? If you were to come back off the power, it'll have the opposite effect, right? Not necessarily just on speed. It's more power setting, right? It'll always have a tendency, if you're at like 80 knots, that means you're below cruise speed. So whatever you apply your power for, in order to maintain your cruise speed, which is 95 to 105 in the 172, it should be relatively stable. It won't be perfectly stable. It's relatively stable, right? Different things come into, weight and balance, center of gravity, the wind, environmental pressures, all that kind of stuff. Does it not stabilize as speed goes up? It can do, but it depends. For you to reach that speed in level flight, the only way you're going to increase your speed in level flight is apply more power. If you apply more power, if it goes over that, that's where you're going to feel that torque, or not the torque, I beg your pardon. That's where you're going to feel the slipstream. If you reduce it, it'll have the opposite effect. Stu says, good to see you, Stu. I presume you can use rudder trim for that rather than permanently using your feet. Yes, 100%. But in the Cessna 172, there is no rudder trim. So you have to do it manually, right? Some aircraft have rudder trim, and when they are flying, you dial it in, 100%. You'll actually notice some aircraft need you to apply rudder trim prior to takeoff, because when you do exert full power, what happens? You have the same effect on the aircraft, right? So for takeoff, you must have a certain rudder trim, and then once you're airborne, you're flying around, well, you can reduce that trim, yeah? So they're all your aircraft will probably dictate what you need to do, applying and setting trims, Creo, good to see you, buddy. Surely it should be 1 Tipperary, 2 Tipperary, 3 Tipperary. Yeah, I don't know how Mississippi became famous for counting. They did a great job out in Mississippi. Great bunch of lads. Oh, look, I have a new camera here as well, look. Ah, Jesus, it's me in front of the telly, look. Terribly frightening, isn't it? Terribly frightening. Anyway, managing the slipstream yaw effect during turns and climbs and descents can feel challenging at first. However, with practice, coordinating the rudder will soon become second nature. And this is the thing, real world flying, the amount of rudder input, depending on the aircraft, for a Cessna, the amount of rudder input, it's huge. Your feet are constantly working the rudder, constantly, you know. So if you don't need rudder in cruise, then why are you at right throttle setting for then are you at the right throttle setting for said cruise if you don't need the rudder in the cruise? Technically, yes. Technically, depends on the aircraft. You know, the aircraft manufacturer will design the aircraft to be at its most stable in level flight at its cruise speed. Its cruise speed, right? And every aircraft has its own predefined cruise speed. And when I say every aircraft, every type of aircraft has its own predefined cruise speed. They have all their V speeds, and these are they're all called V speeds, VY, VX, V1, V speeds, right? Except for crosswinds, yes. And also the weight and balance of the aircraft could impact on that as well, because, well, weight, it's one of the forces we need to watch. Let's say, for example, for instance, right, myself and Stu, I'm probably twice the weight of Stu. If I was in the left seat and Stu is in the right seat and we're flying, the aircraft now has a fundamental weight issue. The weight is now on one side. Now, it's still within the limits of the airplane. Shag off. It's still within the limits, right? But as a pilot, I now need to counter that. Either I'm now going to make sure, well, I'm going to put additional fuel on the right wing tank to counteract the difference in weight. That's how I can alleviate that on the ground. I can maybe move some bag and baggage over to the right-hand side to compensate. Or failing that, I would then adjust the rudder trim tab on the back of the airplane prior to flight. In this instance, if I had rudder trim inside the airplane, I would then tweak that to compensate, right? So that's why weight and balance is very, very important, especially on lighter aircraft. I don't know if any of you guys are, you know, if you remember flying in, like, you know, the 80Rs, which are actually a lot better now, but you go back to like the Fokker Friendship, the F-28s, or, you know, the Fokker 50s, right? If you go all the way back to flying on those aircraft, even, for example, even today, if you hop into like, what are they called? Yeah, a Twin Otter, or what are the other ones? You know, a Defender. They'll physically, especially flying in and out of high terrain areas, they'll ask people to move in the aircraft. The cabin, DC-3s do it all the time. Sorry, you wouldn't just move over there, will you? It's a very polite way of saying, get up, you heavy devil, and get out, right? But there's a reason why they do that. They're trying to balance the weight of the aircraft, because the pilot has to deal with those imbalances before, during, and indeed after the flight, because you have to go back and reset all your trims. If your aircraft is modern and it's, you know, auto trim and all this sort of stuff, you're laughing, you know. But bring it back to simplistic stuff. If we were to put adverse weight on one side of the aircraft and did not adjust our trims, you'll have like a total different flight. You'll feel it differently on the flight, you know? They would want you very close to the center of gravity. But do you know what I mean? But like, that's a real world thing, though. You know, you could have, you know, let's say, for example, you're on a Ryanair, and even airliners would do it. Let's say, you know, you're on a Ryanair flight and you have the Irish rugby team on the left-hand side and you have, you know, the Irish gymnastics team on the other side of the airplane. They can't leave it. Like, they're going to have to mix and match them. Do you know what I mean? It's all about balancing it, you know. If I go to the loo on an EasyJet, the pilot screams, Jesus. I can't even fit into the loo on the 80Rs. Well, I can, but like, you can't turn around in there. So you need to know what you're doing before you go in there, because if you walk in, you ain't turning around. You'd have to walk backwards. Very funny. But anyway, looking at our slipstream. So climbing at VY, which is our best climb speed, right? Reduced pitch to maintain 75 knots and reduce the right rudder if we're turning left. If we're doing a descent power on, reduce pitch to maintain airspeed and apply left rudder. Remember, because we're putting power in, it's going to the right. If you take the power out, it's going to the left. Descent power off, reduce the pitch to maintain 68, which is your VX, which is your glide speed, and apply a little bit of left rudder. Right? Right turns, reduce and increase. Reduce your speed to 75, put in some right rudder, increase it, because you're turning right. A descent power on, reduce your pitch to maintain airspeed, apply right rudder. And then power off descent, turning right, reduce your pitch, and apply right rudder. Very simple. You're applying it in the directions in which you want to travel. I say simple, nothing simple in life. Now, let's jump into the questions, then it's time to fly. So, here's our first question. Increasing power from cruise power in a Cessna 172 causes a slipstream yaw effect. What primary control input keeps the turn coordinator centered during the power of the power increase? Increasing power from cruise causes a slipstream yaw effect. We know that. What primary control input keeps the turn coordinator centered? Do we apply right rudder, apply left rudder, apply right aileron, or push forward in the elevator? So as we've increased power, right, the nose now has a tendency to go left. So we would apply right rudder. You happy enough with that answer? The answer is correct. Adding power with a clockwise prop increases the slipstream. Now, if it was a counterclockwise propeller, all this gets turned on its head. It's the opposite, because it's the opposite of what we're doing, because the prop spin is going the other direction. The Marchetti Warrior went to the left as well, I think, counterclockwise. But anyway, why do we climb at VY in the 172, and what's the appropriate value? So why do we climb at the, as they call it, the best climb speed? Is it to clear obstacles with the shortest ground distance, around 65? Is it to reach altitude in the least amount of time, about 75 knots? Is it for best engine cooling, about 85 to 90 knots? Or is it for maximum range? Strap is here. Good morning, buddy. The answer is to reach altitude in the least amount of time, 75 knots. Now, why do we want to reach altitude in the quickest amount of time as a pilot? Why do you want to get to your altitude as quickly as possible? Some airlines go up, they take the Dennis Hickey out of it. They'll get you up there before you even knew you got up there, because you'll know your ears are popping like mad. Why do they want to get you up to your cruising altitude as quickly as possible? Any ideas, lads? Would you mind going down the ladder and sit in the middle of the cargo hold? Yeah, right? Cruise altitude is most efficient. Yep, fuel efficiency. There you go. The air is thinner. You're burning the least amount of fuel. Fuel efficiency. It's the most efficient way to travel at altitude. So Ryanair, for example, you'll know it. They'll take off fast. They'll get you up to cruise, and then they'll put you're asleep then. That's what they do. Usually sharp takeoff. And they want to stay up there for as long as possible. As long as possible, they want to stay up there because they're using less fuel, right? Ryanair being one of them, 100%. Real Pilot, good to see you, because Guinness will increase in volume under less pressure. That's the bonus question answered. Brilliant. Okay, so why do we climb at VY in the 172? It's to reach altitude in the least amount of time, about 75 knots. Correct. You are in a power-on descent. You are on the correct airspeed, 100 knots. Your vertical speed is too high. You're descending too fast. How do you fix it? So you're on a power-on descent. You're on the correct airspeed, but your vertical speed is too high. How do you fix it? Your pitch is too low. Raise the nose and keep the power. Your pitch is too high. Reduce power and lower the nose. The aircraft is untrimmed. Retrim it. Or your power is too low. Add a little bit of power and raise the nose back to the known attitude. So you're in a power-on descent and you're doing the right airspeed, right? Your vertical airspeed is too high. You're descending too quickly. How do we fix it? Pitch for forward speed, power for vertical speed. And Penguin? More is better. More is always better. So what do you think? Your speed is good, but your vertical speed is all wrong. you're descending too fast. What would you do? Does it mean that your pitch is too low? Raise the nose and keep the same power? Is your power too high? Reduce power and lower the nose further. Power too low? Power too low? So power is too high or power is too low. Add a little power and raise the nose back to the known attitude. Usually the longest answer is the right one. No, but think about it. Think about it. They're trying to catch us out here. You're in a power on descent, meaning that you're using your throttle. You're doing the right airspeed. You're in and around 100 knots. However, our vertical speed is too high. We are descending way too fast. We're going too fast, descending. So in order to correct that, we need to reduce our rate of descending. So the only way we're going to do that is to bring the nose up a little bit. Yeah? If we bring the nose up a little bit, what's going to happen with our power? Our power is going to drop. Our speed will drop off, won't it? So if we're saying the power is too low, we're going to add a little power and raise the nose back to the known attitude, right? Maddie, good to see you, buddy. So I'd be saying the power is too low. We're going to add a little bit more power and then we're going to bring the nose back up a bit. That's what I would do. Hopefully this doesn't break now. What do you reckon, lads? Correct. Insufficient power, or with insufficient power, you're likely to have been forced to lower the nose more than usual to maintain your cruise speed. This has increased your descent rate. The proper fix is to increase power slightly, then bring the nose back up to the correct descent altitude. This restores both the target vertical speed and maintains your correct speed. All right? The Berwick says, would you say £500 for a honeycomb throttle and yoke with a WinWing MCP and CDU is a good deal? I would think so. Yeah, I would think so, Berwick. Yeah. Like the WinWing gear, I was looking at it last night. I'm a terrible agent. I was looking at the WinWing gear last night and I said, you know, what if I put in a full Airbus cockpit, right? You know the way you're sad. Well, I'm sad. It was €750 to do it. And I kind of had to sit there and stare at the screen because the last time I went dreaming about building a home cockpit, it was in the region of about 15 to 20,000 euros for pretty much the same gear. Isn't it amazing what a couple of years have done? You know, but if you do not trim, it'll go back. Possibly. But your trim is all about maintaining your correct speed. You know, Green Potato, good to see you. Yes, you can, of course. Isn't it just, right? The Airliners Live guys have got a partnership with WinWing and are building an A320 simulator in their office. Yeah. I must have upset WinWing for whatever reason, you know. Yeah, this Murphy fella, they probably can't understand me in fairness. I'm after pressing buttons. And obviously I press buttons, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's a pretty good deal. Plane has a tendency to keep the same speed angle of attack. Depending on its power setting, yes. Maddie says, imagine descending too fast and adding power. You kind of need to trim it to keep it in that profile. So if you're descending too fast, the reason why you're going to apply a bit of power, Maddie, right? So what happens when you apply power in the Cessna, for example? What happens if you add power, right? Two things will happen. The first thing, yes, your speed will start increasing, but the nose will also pitch up. The nose will actually come up itself, right? Green Potato says, did you play Flight Sim 2020? If yes, let's say you bought the Top Gun Dark Star and you change PCs, can you download the Dark Star again? Yeah, well, it should be tied to your gamer tag, regardless of the PC, you know? You go faster and climb. Correct. You'll as you apply power, the nose goes up. If the nose goes up, that's going to slow the rate of descent, yeah? But you're descending. It doesn't matter. You could be descending, like, unless you're in a nosedive, right? You could be descending at, like, whatever, 5-10 degrees, right? We'll show you now. If you start increasing engine power, well, the nose of the airplane is going to come up. That's how it works. It's going to bring the nose up. And by doing so, you're adding power, right? The rate of descent has reduced and your airspeed is going to continue, yeah? So in this instance, what was happening, our airspeed was fine, but our rate of descent was off. So our airspeed currently is fine, but our rate of descent is off. If we were to increase the power of the engine, right, it means that the nose will pitch up, we'll maintain our airspeed, but we will shallow out or reduce the descent. You know what I mean? Marty says, if you just add power on descent, you'll get to the ground untrimmed, and that's worse. Why do you mean, where are you getting trimmed from, Maddie? Think about it, right? When you want to hold your desired pitch, then you trim away that force, right? When you want to, let's say, for example, you know, you've now hit your 100 knot speed and you're descending at 500 feet per minute, okay? But in order to maintain that, you have to exert force on your controls. That's where your trim comes in. Then that's when you trim it, right? So trim is important, but trim happens after you achieve what it is you're trying to achieve in terms of your airspeed and your descent rate. That makes sense? Do you know what I mean? So if we were saying, okay, our airspeed is good, however, our vertical speed is too high. We're descending too quickly. So what we would do, if we were to increase the power of the aircraft, it will pitch up, meaning that we can now sustain a shallower rate of descent whilst maintaining the proper airspeed. And once we have it where we need it, then you would apply your trim. Every time you change the power setting of an aircraft, you must retrim. That, you know. MP Troll, good to see you, buddy. Thanks again for the work on the East All commentary. Not at all. You, Akam and Kando, lit a fire. Brilliant. It's great to see you, buddy. Great to see you. Our angle of attack is even more accurate than pitch now. Hang on now, Penguin. Hang on now. Your speed is determined by pitch. Trim is just to make... where's this now? Trim is just to make the controls easier to handle. Correct. That's what trim does. It trims out. It's like a speedboat. It trims out the forces you need to exert physically on the controls. You trim those forces away from you, right? So you're not... So, for example, right, if I'm climbing, I'm pulling the stick or the yoke backwards, right? Well, I'm exerting force, pulling that control back to me. If I were to trim out that force in a flight simulator, what I could do is I could slowly let the control go back to its neutral position. Eventually, I can let go of it because the trim is holding it. Yeah. In the real world, your control doesn't go back to a zero position. Your control stays exactly where you leave it. There's nothing else going to pull it forward or push it back. You trim away that force on it. You know what I mean? You need to try it. Like, one thing I'd highly recommend to anyone who's into, flight sim, try and get a discovery flight, even 30 minutes. You know, you can get them for like $150. A discovery flight in a general aviation airplane for a flight simmer, especially if you do general aviation, the amount of figuring out you'll achieve just by doing one discovery flight. You don't even have to go on and do a PPL, just one discovery flight. You'll suddenly realize, that's the thing, right? Because you'll get a feel for the rudder pedals. You'll figure out just how much shaking is actually involved, and you'll actually realize how much input, or as you progress, lack of input you need to be making on the controls, right? Biggest challenge new pilots or student pilots have, it's the white knuckle syndrome, because they're grabbing a hold of the yoke and they're constantly making adjustments. They're afraid, the plane is going this way, I need to immediately correct it. You have to let the plane fly. Yeah, it has to fly, right? And it's similar to boats. It's going to bob, it's going to weave, it'll come up, it'll come down, right? So you have to allow it to fly. You'll always see it, the student pilot hopping into the plane and they're on the yoke like it's absolutely bananas. Ease. It's like driving a car, lads. You're learning how to drive, you're, Jesus, you're doing multiple micro corrections. There's no need for it. It takes time to learn that and figure it out. But if you were to do a discovery flight, that's where you start putting all these little bits together. It's very hard to kind of get the full picture of training and aviation and piloting purely from your simulator. You have to feel the forces on the body, be it, we're getting close, force feedback is getting very close, VR, motion rigs, it's getting so close. But I would highly recommend, if you got the chance, a discovery flight, 30 minutes. That's all you need. 30 minutes in a general aviation airplane, you will learn more in that 30 minutes that you can now bring back to your flight simulator than you would spending 100 hours in your flight sim. Know what I mean? Trim and rudder is the key, yes? But it depends. Depends because your Cessna, for example, doesn't have a rudder trim, you see? So therefore, your rudder has to do the work, you know? Angle of attack is the wind over your wings. Too much of angle, the wind will buffer at the trailing edge of the wing and you can stall out. But in a power descent, you tend not to pitch your nose that high unless you're trying to do a very short landing. Yeah. A discovery flight specifically comes in handy with taxiing and the prop wash behavior. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. Not only that, if you're sitting idle on the ground with the engine, right, and you know a small bit of power, very little, but even if you're idling with the engine on and you're parked and you were to pull the controls back towards you, you'll actually feel the plane change its pitch angle because the wind from the prop wash is hitting your elevator. And if you deflect that wind, i.e., you know, you're pulling up, or yeah, the wind is going to bounce off that elevator and go up, pushing the weight, pushing the gadget down. It's very good. Fly with Stuart, good to see you. But yeah, very interesting. Maddie says, I believe you need someone to teach you correctly because alone it's hard to advance. That's why these things here are great, where we can talk aviation. 100%. And like, don't ever, like, lads, don't ever think you're asking the wrong question or, a silly question. They don't exist. Unless you ask me what size my hands are. But they don't exist. You have to learn somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're unsure about something, or if there's something that you believe to be correct, and now you're hearing something different, sure, ask. We're all here to learn. That's what this is. We're here to learn. The G8 Airvan will give you a good idea of how that works, as does the C210. Yeah. Flyward Stewart, it's okay. The Gibbo off buttons used to turn off the lights in Gibbo's house, which they probably just have done, and then I get an alert. Brilliant. Murphy proves in every stream, no one is completely useless. They can always be used as a bad example. Airlock Doc, it's great to see you. Brilliant. You're not allowed to make me laugh. I have a sore throat, but that's hilarious. But also very true. Very, very true. Right, let's go to this, shall we? Go to the briefing, right? Climbs and descents. We have a little video here. Again, it's a little reminder of what we're doing. So let's go in and have a look at this as we psych ourselves out, friends, of what's coming next. Are we ready? Play the gadget.
Today, there are a few things on the agenda. You are doing climbs and descents, including turns in each of these phases. Before anything else, go to the Activities menu, scroll to the right, and click Custom Content. We're doing Lesson 4 today. You will once again begin in the air. First of all, find your trim for level flight, then enter a straight climb. Remember to trim for VY speed and maintain coordination. In the stable climb, enter first a left turn, then a right. Turns in climbs must be made at 20 degrees of bank. Then level off again. Once stable, it's time for power on descents. Your target here is 500 feet per minute. In the descent, practice left turns and right turns. Keep going for that 500 feet per minute descent rate. Then level off again. It's time for the last maneuver, power off descents. Enter power off descent at idle power. Your target is an airspeed of 68 knots. In the power off descent, turn left and right, maintain 68 knots. Then level off. We're done. If you do not want to redo any maneuvers in your flight, then go back to the Academy website and check the feedback. It will be there within a minute or two of leaving the game. If you did not pass, check the suggested improvements and head back into the simulator.
And that's crucial, right? The objective here, yes, we want to pass this, but what's brilliant, if we fail, and this is where you're supposed to fail because this is where you're being taught, you're being trained, right? If you fail, it's going to show you where you failed. Failing anything when it comes to aviation from a training perspective is not always a bad thing. It's where you learn. It's when you do something wrong during training, that's where it's quite okay to make a mistake or fail. right? So, you know, people always apply so much negativity. Oh, I failed, I'm not doing that again. No, you didn't pass. You need more information. Go grab the information, or maybe get a bit of help from someone and try it again. Like, it's not a fail. You know, go to your room. You know, you're not getting hot dinners or whatever. You learn best from your mistakes. And I'd always be careful. Like, anyone, you know, you have people who just, for whatever reason, tend to be very good. They excel at everything. You want to watch those fellas, because they'll have a mistake someday, and it'll be the mother of all of it. Do you know? Roy says, during my first introduction flight in a 152, I told the instructor I had some simulator experience. He handed me over the key. What happened during taxiing was I was swerving from left to right. During the takeoff, the prop wash caught me by the act. It was scary. I have control was what the instructor said. Then it was back in the FSX days without proper hardware. Yeah. So, like, my advice, if you're my advice, if you're going to be doing real world training, forget what you know. You want to get as much information directly from that flight school and your CFI, right? Everything else you've learned up until this point, that's nice to know in the background. There's a bit of familiarization built in there. You know what I mean? But, like, could you imagine? You're doing it wrong. I watched this fella on the internet and he said you're wrong. Right. You know, that'll only happen once. The crazy man from Ireland, good to see you, buddy. Welcome in. You learn best from your mistakes. You absolutely do. You absolutely do. But as I say, I highly, highly recommend, doing a discovery flight. Even one. If you never did another one, just do one. So what we're going to do, we are going to practice the different climb and descend modes. We're going to be climbing with VY. VY is our best climb speed. We're going to perform a left and right climbing turn. Remember not to exceed 20 degrees bank. We're going to do a power on descent. Perform a left and right power on descent. Then we're going to do a power off descent, performing a left and right power off descent. Right. How long should we do this? Well, we can quit the lesson once we've done it, or we can keep practicing. You will be evaluated on both your climbs, power on descents, and power off descents. Your turns in each mode will also be evaluated. Your score will depend on being able to maintain 75 knots while turning target of 20 degrees bank and coordinated. For your power on descents, maintain stable cruise speed. You can get up to about 100. 500 feet per minute descent. Right? Briggsy, good to see you. While turning a target of 30 degrees bank and coordinated flight. Descending, we get up to 30 degrees. Power off descent, reduce your power to idle, attain the best glide speed, which is going to be 68, and commence descent, maintaining your speed. While turning, target 30 degrees of bank. The location of this flight is going to take us out to Uluru in Australia. We're going to be flying at 4,500 feet above mean sea level, and it's 11:22 during the day. Are we happy enough? So I got to see it. I'm on the stall part of the lesson. I just can't seem to get past it. Okay, we'll be getting to that soon. We'll all have a look at it. Last time I flew in a GA plane, I was so busy panicking and trying not to hurl. No way I was mentioning flight sim. I ripped the strap off the side of the cockpit in panic at one point. So, and that's another thing. When you hop into a small general aviation airplane, you suddenly realize these things make an awful lot of noise and they shake and they're constantly moving. It's not all on rails as we're used to. One thing I will say though, always keep your eyes outside the airplane, far distance, right? And if you can, get air on you. Just get air blowing on your face, cold air. You know what I mean? So let's see what we're going to do here. So lesson in progress. So we're going to go into the sim and we're going to select this flight. So we're going to go to activities. We're going to come across here to custom content and we're going to come down here to lesson number 4, climbs and descents. So we're going to climb and then we'll do a left and right turn. We're going to do a power on descent, left and right turn, and then we'll do a power off descent, left and right turn. Lessons do not include narration or in-game elements. Practice solo, then come back to the academy to see how you get on. All right. Well, let's see what's going to happen here, folks. We'll give it a bash and, let's see what happens. Alrighty, so here we are. We're going to fix our power. We're going to try and maintain level flight. Power's too low. So let's get ourselves back up to straight level, 4,500 feet. We're very high all of a sudden. There we go. Okay, so 90 odd knots. RPM is looking good, and we're in steady flight. So what we're going to do, we're going to apply power. We're going to pitch the nose. Watch the rudder. Easy now. Jeez, the rudder went miles off there. And we're going to pitch up, and we're going to be holding about 76 knots. Yeah? So we're climbing nicely. We can start adding in a little bit of trim here as well. Easy now. And we're aiming for about 76. A little bit more trim. Oh, Betsy. $79 or $80. Will you get up the hill? There we go. It'll probably take a minute just to get everything kind of, you know. So we're pretty much climbing. And not here and there shouldn't really make a difference, right? But we want to be looking at that 76. Now to start our turn on this, right? Right there, 76. Try and hold it there. That took way too long. So what we want to do now, they said, in order to do our turn, right, we want to hold our 76, and we're going to start our turn over to about 20 degrees with a small bit of rudder input. Watch that speed picking up on us. And we're going to try and hold this now. There's 76. Now we're going to roll out. Now, a couple of things we've already noticed. I've blown through that 4,500 feet, but that's okay because we're climbing. Now we're going to continue to climb on the left-hand side. So we're going to pitch up again, get us back down to about 76, and we'll start our turn. Watch the rudder and hold it there. It'd be interesting to see what sort of feedback we get for the handling. All right, close enough. So reduce the power, and we're going to go back to level flight, back up to our cruise speed, right? And we can trim ourselves down. So now we want to descend at 500 feet a minute. That was our target. All right. So we're going to pitch down to about 500 feet a minute. And looking at our airspeed, we want this to cool the jets at our cruise speed, which is around 95 to 105 is going to be fine, right? So we're going to pitch to about 500 and make sure then that our vertical speed holds in and around 500 and our velocity holds at our cruising speed. Something like that. Alright. So now we can go for what's called a 30-degree bank. So we'll start our turn. Watch the rate of descent. She's after going right down there. See that? And our speed is picking up. So we want to throw this all the way over as we're turning. Nearly there. We're coordinated, which is good. We're just trying to get our speeds right. Alright, we'll level off. Now we're going to go for the far side again. So 500 feet in our descent. Throw it into the left. Small bit of back pressure. We want to keep our rate of descent at around 500. See the way our airspeed is fairly locked on? Alright, we'll straighten up now. And for level flight, our cruise speed will start dropping back to about 95 or so, which is fine. Now we're going to drop the power. And before we know it, the nose is going to start dropping, and we're aiming for 68%. Slowly reducing, right? Slowly reducing. So our speed is starting to come down. And we're looking to hold at around 68 knots, right? So see the way my airspeed isn't going down enough, so I need to counter that. I need to pull up a bit. We're looking for 68 knots here. Add a bit more back pressure, get the speed down. Easy now. There's 75. We're going the right direction. Don't want to descend too much. So once we get to that magical number of 68, we'll trim and try and hold it there. As we're slowing down, the nose is going to have a dependency. It's just going to try and lean forward on us, yeah? So there's 70 knots. We're looking for 68. So we're just about to hit 68. There's 68. We trim ourselves now, so we're not changing speed. We're fairly trimmed now. And there's 68. Alright, we're going to do a right turn. Try and hold that 68. Keep going to the right. There's a 30-degree turn. Keep her going. Keep her going. Okay. Watch the speed. And try and hold it at that 68. Alright. Level off. Watch our altitude now. There's our 68. Over to the left. Roughly there. And hold. There's 68 and 30 degrees. Not too bad. Alright, power coming back in. And we'll climb back up to where we need to be. So our bank limit in the power on and power off descents is up to 30. For our climb, it's 20. Right? Now, I'm expecting not to get a high score here. Because my control, well, it wasn't great. Altitude and speed wasn't great. But let's end it now to see what happens. I'm interested to see how this goes, right? Gibbo, good to see you. I went to Ma Riley's at 12 o'clock for lunch and it was closed. I don't believe you. On a Thursday, 12 o'clock? Jesus. They do have the best wings. Gibbo, good to see you, man. I thought you were meant to, yeah, so we'll have a look here now to see what Navigraph Academy is going to tell us, right? So lesson in progress. This will all update itself here now in a moment. I'm interested to see what score we got. I'd be surprised if I passed it now, but we'll see. Right, so we can see it. Flight debrief is complete. Let's view our analysis. I got a 71% score. I didn't pass. Why didn't we pass? Well, let's have a look. You completed climbs and descents, but review your score. Our climb is pretty good. We managed to hold the climb speed well with visual pitch cues. Keep trusting your outside reference. Our turns in our climb were only okay. Satisfactory. Right? Our power on descent failed. Why? Our speed went completely off. Completely off. So our speed changed 18 knots. Vertical speed was okay. I was happy enough with that, but it didn't like our forward momentum. Right? Power off descent. That said failed. We've passed turn 1, turn 2. So the turn seemed to be okay, but it just didn't like power off descent. The score was shocking bad. So the airspeed went too low. Wait, that doesn't seem right. 68 knots, sure. Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
Review the lesson. Climbs and descents. Go to briefing. And let's start the lesson again. Can we do it better? Climb and descend. And let's try it again. Hayden, good to see you, dude. Hope you're well. You missed the part we were grabbing a coffee. Oh no. Sim Racing, good to see you, buddy. Welcome aboard. Do I remember you? Of course we remember you. We never forget a name or a face. Or someone who slags me or has the crack. Right, so we need to fix all this again. So, we are now at 4,500 feet, watching our speed. Want to cruise, so watch our power. Here we go. So we're going to go for a climb. Full power, small bit of right rudder, and we're going to climb for 76. Speed coming down. The nose is going to try and drop as we're doing this, right? Speed coming down. $77. 76. Alright, we're fairly bang on there, yeah? 74, 75, 76. Alright, so we're happy enough with that. Alright, so we're going to do our first turn. So we're going to drop the nose a little bit, roll to the right, and 20 degrees. Small bit of rudder input as well. Right? Watch the speed. What a time for me telly to turn off. We're a little bit fast there. There we go. We're 76. Let's roll it back. Get the speed back up. 76 is what we want. Or 75. There we go. Okay. Into a left turn 20 degrees. Speed went a little bit below us. And we'll try and hold it there. Like a knot or two, it really shouldn't worry about a knot or two. Okay. Reduce a small bit of power. And return to level flight. So our next job then is going to watch our speed, because we want our speed to get us down to, what do we say, cruising speed, right? Yeah, it's really good on PS5, man. We were playing it there last night. Very good. So it didn't like our speed the last time, so let's get our speed up. Alright. 95 to 100 knots. So now we're just going to take some power out. And we're descending now at about 400. We'll aim for 5. Maintain our speed. And there's 500. Ish. Alright, close enough. Let's add a right turn. 30 degrees over. A little bit more. Speed's okay. And let's go around to the left. Over to 30 degrees. Watch the rate of descent. Watch the controls. 4 to 500. And our cruise speed is holding well. Alright. Let's level off. Now, before we start descending on this one, get the speed down to 68. Easy. Hold the nose level, get us down to about 68. And we'll start letting the plane drop the nose down a little bit. Easy now. Bit of trim coming in here. Alright, there's 68. Pitch down a little bit. Pitch up a little bit. We're just trying to hold that magic number of 68 knots. Okay, roughly there, right? That's our best glide. Alright, now we'll throw in a turn. Right hand side 30 degrees. We're coordinated with our rudder. Watch the speed. 69. Want to keep it at 68. There we go. Alright, level off. There's our 68. Let's go left turn. 30 degrees. Hold our 68. Easy. Easy. There's 70. Easy now. There we go. And then straighten up. And we'll go back to cruise. Hold the nose. Back to level flight. Airspeed is picking up and we can relieve some of the pressure. Right. 74, 75 at airspeed, yeah. Alright, let's see how this one goes. We weren't a million miles off there. But again, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see, lads. So, lesson in progress. So we'll give it a few moments for that to sort it out now. Jackie, good to see you, buddy. Well within the standards for V speeds. Yeah, give or take. Give or take. Fornax, that was a song, yeah. Abdul had issues with turns in power on descents. Yeah. Well, the good thing is it's telling us kind of where we go wrong, right? And that's okay, we'll figure it out again, So let's see what happens here. This just takes a few moments and then we'll get a report back to say, okay, well, this is how you did. Our last score was 71%. It'll be interesting to see. And again, you'll see the importance of getting your controls set up correctly. And Navigraph go through all of this in the introduction. They'll go into detail what way your controls should be set up. So, they're not oversensitive, they're not too loose. You know what I mean? And it'll do all that. So if you're struggling, go in and have a look at your controls, right? So we passed it. We got 85%. Still wasn't great, but we've done enough now to be able to pass it, right? All right. So our climb this time is just satisfactory. And I noticed that because my speed into the climb didn't feel great, right? The airspeed, 80 knots. I should have been at 75 knots. So I was too fast. So I lost some points there. All right. What about the turns? Turns are way better. Satisfactory. Speed. So my bank and coordination, I can see that the bank angle and the coordination of the rudder are perfect. They're happy enough with that. My speed or energy management, that's what I must work on, right? One Foxy Bingo, Gav. Good to see you, Gav, for 6 months. Cheers, buddy. Hope you're well. So, that's giving me great information because I know, right, engine management or energy management, that's where I'm lacking. I need to work harder on that. All right. Power on descent. Again, the speed change was all right. Vertical speed was good. So the change of speed wasn't great. So the target, they didn't want to see any speed change, but I had plus or minus 8 knots. All right. The vertical speed they were happy enough with. The second descent over to the left-hand side, happy out. Happy as a pig in the proverbial, because I was more comfortable doing that one. The score was 93 because the speed change was within limits and the descent was, 400 to 500 feet. All right. Our power off for our descent was perfect because we held the nose until we got to that 68 knots. Then we let the nose drop and we trimmed. Our turns, much better again because our speed change, we kept it within a knot or 2 or 3. Click up here. 3 knots, right? No issues there. Our 26 degrees, we were aiming for 30, right? And our rate of descent, we were looking for 500, right? And it was 4 degrees of a right? But it's still good. Our second turn, not as good. This is over to the left-hand side. And remember, you're coming away with your coordination. So see the way the right turn was perfect because I put in rudder input. The left turn, it didn't bite enough. It didn't bite enough because as I was turning left, I didn't let out the rudder quick enough. I kind of kept it on the right. And how we can see that is the bank angle on the left turn was actually perfect. The vertical speed on the left turn was perfect as well. Do you know? So, am I looking down here? The power off, was bang on. 95%. You can't ask for more than that, you know. If you didn't get, for example, the climb right, do a second climb in the same flight. Navigraph will take the best one of the flight. I didn't know that, Bell, bro. Okay, that's handy. Okay, so you can do it within your normal. The climb is 65, not 68. No. Your powered off is 68. Your climb is 75. Sure, we did that. Our climb speed, we actually did 79. It was supposed to be 75. Do you know what I mean? But that's how this works. And again, looking back at all of this, I'm happy enough with the coordination. Vertical speed isn't bad either. And the degrees of bank isn't bad. Bit of work to be done on the degrees of bank, but not much. Speed or energy management, that's where it needs a lot of work. In a power off descent, no problem, because I held 68 knots. In our power on, there was too much moving between slow and fast. And then our climb, satisfactory. We went a little bit fast as we were climbing. So it's understanding better controlling the aircraft before we start doing all these things. 85%, nothing wrong with that, right? I'm not in a position where I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I need to do that again because I know I can get like 90%, right? But I've done enough on it to realize, okay, well, I know where I'm struggling here. So I'll eventually probably come back and do that. You know what I mean? So if we look at this now, because we need to move over to the DC6 now, lads. Time is moving. We've passed 4 lessons so far. Next week, we're going to have a look at stalls and dive. That's next week when we do this. And who knows, we might get 2 out of it next week with slow flight and the use of flaps. All right? So the Navigraph Academy, this is all for free, by the way. You know, so you can access this. It only works in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 and 2024, right? But it's all for free. And if you're on the PlayStation or if you're on X-Plane, right, well, you can still sign up and get access to all the course material. The only thing you're missing is they won't be able to score you, right? That's the only kind of downside of this, at least for now. But it's a great bit of stuff for Navigraph, so give it an old blast and see if we get on with it. So we've the first 4 done. Next week we'll tackle stalls and then see where we get on from there, right? Any questions? Excellent. Right, tonight we are now going to start planning for our flight on VATSIM. And what time are we now? We're 1:45. Tonight we're going to be flying out of Chicago O'Hare and we're going over to St. Paul's in Minneapolis. So it turns out Chicago is cold and rather windy. So let's get out of here and head somewhere much colder. Minneapolis, where the expected temperatures on Thursday are about -20. Time to brush up on the old cold winter operation procedures. Next year's destination, of course, for Flight Sim Expo and part of the Twin Cities alongside St. Paul, Minnesota, or Minneapolis, is known for the clean layout, modern skyline, and vast chain of lakes. Mississippi River cuts through the city, offering excellent VF4 reference points, and the area's mix of urban, industrial, and natural features makes it a rewarding place to explore from the air, especially during the winter, when snow transforms the whole region. Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport has one of the shortest distances from the terminal to runway for a major US airport, making it a favourite among pilots for efficient operations, especially in sub-zero conditions. So that is where we're flying tonight. So what we're going to do, we're going to into the sim, because we are taking a proper machine. Friends, tonight we fly the Douglas DC-6. And we need to load ourselves into Chicago. So, into O'Hare we go. Now, where did we park last week? Can anyone remember? Where Where did we park last week? 27 left. I dumped it in here somewhere. Right, well, before we choose where we're taking off from, look at the photo. Yeah, it's like proper cold, look. Murph, for the DC6 installed into 2024 if you don't have 2020, no, you'll have to fudge it. You need 2020 to install it, I think. Right, let's have a look at the weather first. Oh, Jesus. Right, time of day, bring it up to tonight. And let's have a look. So there is high pressure dominating in and around Chicago. Expected temperatures this evening, -5 to -10 degrees. Jesus. And when we get up to Minneapolis, it's a very kind of -12, -14. It's going to be cold as balls. Right, let's look at the wind. So winds 8 o'clock this evening, how are we looking at? Relatively light, 4 knots, give or take, coming in from the west or southwest. No real changes there. And then when we get up to Minneapolis, they're coming in from the south. 10 knots. And they're staying that way. All right. So it's going to be a westerly departure with a southern facing landing. Fair enough. Okay, what about our wind speed at altitude? Well, let's have a look. So as we blast off out of Chicago, we're going to be dealing with a headwind in the regions of about 30 to probably 40 knots. Yes, 30 to 40 knots as we're heading up the way. So that's going to be loads of crack. All right. What about cloudage? Clouds at the moment in and around Chicago. Let me see here now. It's actually going to be clear. Right now, it's clear, and come tonight, it's going to be clear, at least in the immediate vicinity. So if you're going up to Minneapolis, 100%, and it's completely clouded over. Yeah, 100% overcast. What about precip? Are we expecting rain anywhere up and along this neck of the woods or snow? There's a 6-hour window, no precip is forecast. There's a whole load of it going up the north there, but it looks like we're going to escape that. All right, good news. Let us now go into SimBrief. Let's go start planning our flight for this evening. And we'll see what's going to happen here. So we're going to say new flight. Airline is that of Firefly Air 235, departing out of ORD, KMSP. Lovely. And the airframe is that of a Douglas DC-6. Ooh. Let's see what happens. So block time, 1 hour 50. Departing out of runway 22 left, arrival 30. 22 left and into 30. 22 left into Chicago. So let me see. Chicago 22 left. Is that right? There's 22 right. So there's 22 right. So 22 left is down here. 22 left. Is that right? Let's have a look. Diddly-dee. Flight radar. Purple Kona, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're well. 49 months. Cheers, buddy. Very kind of you, sir. Now, let me see. Log in there now. And hang on. Log in there now. Hi. Jesus, am I on Google or Apple with this thing? I can never remember. Sign in. Sign in. Yes, that's me. There we go. Let's see what happens there. Continue. Yeah, that worked. Right, brilliant. So, over to Chicago. Jeez, look at all the real world traffic today. Chicago. Let's have a look. O'Hare. They do appear to be using them. Yeah. All right. They're using them. Okay, 2-2. What did you say it was? 2-2 left. Now, the expected routing was going to be Pumpkin, Nido, Dylan, Ronick, Kama. Pumpkin, Nido, Dylan, Ronnie, go. Now, I could have a different approach coming in here. Duluth. That seems very high up the road, does it? You were going Ronick and then Kama. Was it? Now, Kama brings you this way. Should that be the better way to go? But we want Pumpkin. Pumpkin. There we go. That's the one there. Now, I should be allowed to fly like that based on my aircraft and its capabilities. We hope. So it's still 1 hour and 50. So that's what we're going to do. All right, let's go ahead and generate. And let's see what happens here, right? This could be amazing fun. This could be brilliant, lads. You know. Murph, I don't know. I don't if you know, but the ATIS in the US is always accessible in Navigraph. It is. It is. Yes, we can have a look at that as well. Right. Altitude. What you want is at 14,000. Fuel. Right. That's okay. Put you over there. And if we're going to be using the 2-2s, now, I don't necessarily want jetways. So, ramp 24 GA large, that's going to be us. Let's go live. And let's load into Chicago. And we'll open up some VPilot over here. Did you set your departure time to the future? I did not, Airlock. I did not. Shouldn't change much. Looking at the weather, definitely something. Oh, Jesus, look how bad the weather is. That's hilarious. ATC. Let's fire up VPilot. Here is our. Oh, look at the state of this thing. Okay. Head tracking. There we go. I just had to think about it. All right, left is looking good, right is looking good. And lock it in. Right. Ground power unit, yes. Wheel chocks, computer covers, front cabin, cargo, main cabin. Front cabin, leave it closed for the moment. There, GB. All right, we're looking good. Okay, so let's have a look. Connect to VPilot. We seem to be connected. Anyone here on the ground in Chicago? Let's find out. VATSIM radar. There's a FedEx over there, look. But apart from that, we're all on our lonesome. Alright, so that's O'Hare. And then Minneapolis, there's an aircraft up there. Alright, okay. So, let us have a now look at what we need to do, right? Navigraph, please. Thank you. So we have an idea of the weather at both our departure and our arrival areas, all right? And we also know the crack with wind and all the jazz. So our flight, we're going to bring it in from SimBrief. And let's just have an now look here to see what's happening, right? So, software update. Actually, give it an now update. I can't wait till they bring out the new SimLink. You know, that'll change the laws of physics, Captain. Right, let's have a gawk. Introducing Rogers VFR chart. Ooh! Rogers Data, an Austrian provider renowned for its sectional ICAO charts used by the flight schools and private aviators alike. Charts provide topographical details. Oh, that's fantastic. Are these available for everyone now? You know, Speedbird Simulations, good to see you, buddy. Waiting to pull the trigger on the AB9 in a sale. Save money with the AB6. Sweet. Nice. Traffic and network updates. Traffic and network menu has a fresh new look. Toggle it on to click on any airport to get the details departing aircraft. Ooh, nice. Does everyone else have to update Navigraph? Or am I going to get given out to? That happens to me quite a lot. I get given out to. Right, let's have a look. Now, I imagine we're low altitude. Would that be right? Like, there's no way we're high altitude airways. Yeah, we're low altitude. All right. Right, let's have a look. No departures available. Interesting. Our approach then, so, well, let's have a look. We need some information on Chicago. Operational notices. Why have we no departures? Runway 2. Jesus, we're going to have a look at this. O'Hare 9, takeoff obstacles. Oh, better read up on this. 22 left. There's a pole at 1,300 feet. Right. Does the update of SimLink means that they'll implement interactive taxi? Yeah, I think once they have that done, Roy, yeah, that's the plan. All aircraft expect radar vectors to first en route navigate fix. Expect clearance to requested altitude flight level 10 minutes after. Top altitude is 5,000. All aircraft cross 5.5 arc GCO at or above 3,000. Maintain 5,000 or... Now where's that look? We're blasting off this way. So what's this telling us? Cross the arc or the VOR, right, grand, at or above 3,000 feet. That's okay. And then if we're unable, we need to talk to them. All Navigraph have the same as you. Grand, thanks, Unjammer. Okay, so, there's nothing here particularly I can see. Takeoff minimums not authorized ATC. Alright. Chicago departure control. Use frequency depicted within the sector where your first navigate fix is your route located. But our first navigate is Pumpkin. There's Pumpkin. So it's an RNAV. So when we take off, we're going to expect vectors up to 3,000 feet before we hit that VOR, and then away with it. Right, grand. Looks fairly straightforward. Maybe I'm being naive, but it looks very straightforward. Right, come back in here. And let us now have a look at our arrival. So we're on the Killer 3, RNAV arrival, right? K-Bull, and then we're in this way. Now, what do I want on the airplane for an approach? So we're planning runway 30 left. Now that to me doesn't make sense because the wind is coming up this way, look. So I'm going to have to say it's going to be runway 17. Would it be? Let's see. Parallel runways according to this. Jesus, they're landing them in the crosswind. Zerber, good to see you, buddy. Hello from the team at ASC. Welcome aboard. The trailer was absolutely the best trailer in the history of trailers in the world, wasn't it? It was brilliant. Welcome in, guys. Hope you're well. Hope you're well. Right, parallel runways. Will that change come this evening? Probably. Sure, we'll have an now look and see what happens, right? So, come back in here, Navigraph. It was one of the trailers of all time. It really was. Just joined on the vertical. Unknown, welcome in, buddy. Thank you very much. Good to see you. It's all kind of weirdness, but we'll figure it out. So if we're saying either or, the RNAV is going to be fine, or ILS is going to be fine if we are landing on the 30s, right? Because, let me see, transition final. Let's add that in for the crack. Missed approach is what I'm worried about. Climb to 1300, then climb to 3000 on a heading of 301, outbound on the Minneapolis VOR, radial 298. That's fairly straightforward as a missed approach. Okay. Give us a different runway. The likelihood it could be runway 17. Couldn't it? Okay, so as a worst case scenario, if it's going to be 17, missed approach, climb 1300, climbing right, turn to 3000, and direct to the VOR and hold. Right. Again, fairly straightforward. Alright. Fairly happy with that. There's nothing major there that's going to upset us. It depends if we get ATC coverage though, you know? 30 left and 30 right are for arrivals. Yeah, but I'm just thinking on the wind though, because the wind is supposed to be blowing from the south later on, right? And if that's the case, if it's blowing in from the south, it's coming this direction. Are they going to leave us with a crosswind, or are they going to give us either the 12s, or will they give us the 17? It's hard to call, lads. It's hard to call. I can request 17 for, I'm sure I could. Other aircraft and similar low-hanging engines are restricted from using KC-135s, look. Let's have a look here now. All aircraft within 36 metre wingspan and longer operating there. Don't go near it. Grand. Okay. Okay, nothing screaming at me. DME or GPS required. Radar required. RNAV 1. Expect for turbojet aircraft only. Wait, what? Expect to send via clearances and runway. What's this now? For turbojet aircraft only. So that means I can't use that. Would that be fair? According to the TAF at 1800, winds would be 190 at 9. Yeah, it doesn't really matter the wind direction. Like it's once we have an idea of, well, where do we go if we can't land? Where do we go? That's the whole purpose of trying to figure out, you know, missed approach. So either or, it doesn't matter what runway. Once we have an idea of, okay, well, if we can't land, which way do we go? That's the idea, you know. For turbojet aircraft only, I'm not a turbojet. So that would mean I can't fly that particular divil. The plot, my friends, has thickened. Sim brief. Back in we go, and we'll edit the flight. Bum 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 bum. It wants us to go this way. That seems very far up the road, off the road, and behind it, doesn't it? Like, how is that going to take the same amount of time as that? I ask. The Muscle 3, we can go. Pumpkin, Nido, Dylan, Ronick. Let's look at the Muscle 3. That was a real world flight, so let's go in with that one for the crack, will we? I think it just excludes turboprops. Zerberg, really? Naughty Gnome says it's not. No, it's not. Well, hang on. Let's look at this one. Let's look for the Muscle 3, you know. Just to see what the crack is, because it's a very similar flight plan. And granted, my altitude is going to be considerably lower than the lads, right? 14,000 feet. Like, I'd be out of everyone's way. So let's unload and reload. And let's have a look at the routing here. Turbojet aircraft only restricted in standard instrument departure or STAR typically includes modern commercial airliners, as the term turbojet in aviation regulatory and operational contexts broadly used to encompass turbofan or turbofan engines. Turbojet aircraft as one with a jet engine. Yeah, that's what I mean. So yeah, I don't have jet engines. This is because turbofans are a type of jet engine. Yeah, like mine are like, we're piston. You know? Okay, let's have a look at this, the RNAV here now. For turbojet aircraft only. Oh, balls. Yeah, no, we're in the DC-6. Are we learning the DC-6? I'm fairly comfortable with it. We are going to do a bit of jiggery-pokery with her today, though, because I need to find a route. Like, I've told the gadget I want a DC-6. Our airframe is that for a DC-6, right? But SimBrief is suggesting routes for aircraft that I can't use. The Bainey 3. That's the one that was giving me at the start. Alright, let's see what this one does. Scheduled block time 1 hour and 50. Not a hope. This is way longer. Three hours. We're not doing that, Chief. That's the Bainey 3, right? We do a Bainey 3? Turbojet aircraft only. Am I missing something here? Right, we're going to get very productive here now. Right, go back into this. Edit that flight. And we're going to change the laws of physics. We are going to go with the Killer 3. But we won't use the Killer 3. Are you doing a payload, a flight, or shorthand? We're just prepping it for tonight. This flight will be in a couple of hours' time. Right, now, let's see if we can kind of, you know, wag the tail a different way. So if I'm not allowed to use the star, if I can't use the star, what can I shaggin' use? Runway, no. Give me this guy. Colours used to mean something to me back in the day. Kama Hendrick. Right, let's see. Bainey, no. Blue. No. Declare 9. BAE transition. That looks like it. Oh, this simplifies it. Let's have a look. Turbojets, turboprops. Ha! Now we're talking. Come on, Naughty, you genius. Right. approach into the threes, wasn't it? 30 left, wasn't it? Three zero left final. Let's go with that. Okay. Now back into sim brief, so we know we have the right friggin' plan. Look at that weather coming in, look. Let's have a look here now. Edit the flight. So we want to go... we want to do something like this. Pumpkin, Nido, Dylan, Ronick, Kama, BAE, or BAE rather, and then that. Analyze. Hot chip, yes! Now generate that, you mad devil, you. Viper Strike, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're well. For this routing, does not give me... Well, it gives me the... Hang on now, did not give me the... It did. Right, excellent stuff. Now, try it again. Unload. Import from SimBrief. Darchi. Now you're threshing. Right, and then our arrival is going to be the approach, and we're going to call it the ILS for 30. Loon, Zaski, Hasty, Twins. Hapton. I see Hapton. No. Hermie. Or EAU. Alright, it'll be final. So they'll have to be vectoring to get us over there. Right. Jesus then. So we'll want to go Twins straight to Abbas. It's specifically for runway 12 left and right, but it says on chart for all other runways expect vectors to final. Yeah, no, we're grand. We'll fly in this way. Either shagging way, we're going up to the Eclair VOR. And then we'll ask for vectors. That's all we can do, lads. You know. And if it gives out to us, I'll put on an owl, you know. Well, in my day. Right. Is that a plane flying? It is. It is. This is going to be a hilarious crack. Right, that's the first bit of the jigsaw. The second bit of the jigsaw is, does Murphy know how to fly this machine? Ground power. Lights. Beacon. They're all ground for the moment. You come up here. And we want to have a look at... That's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. Get some lights on in here, please. Control, lock. Get rid of that. Now, the real mission here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be... can we utilise the GTN? Because this is where the crack is going to be. So that's powering up here. While we're waiting, let's get those inverters turned on. And now let's see, can we put our entire flight plan into the gadget? Flight plan! Menu. Import from the brief of sim. This may take a few moments. Yes, that's okay. In you go, you big Jesse. Let's see what happens. Note to self, leave before Murph. Rubbish. Alright, so it's putting me V speeds, which is perfect. 13,000, 12,000. We're heading west, therefore it has to be even, so it should be 14, but anyway. Right. No arrival airport. Huh? Kama. Our arrival... Transition. That looks right, doesn't it? Looks good to me, lads. That looks good to me. Zaski. Flight plan. Zaski. There is a disco in there. We want to watch that. Right. Badger, Milwaukee. All right. So we want to utilize the autopilot. The module may not work with some aircraft. Jeez, I hope it works with this one. Right, GPS is on. Okay, what we need to do here very quickly is disconnect ourselves off VATSIM for the moment, hide this gadget, and get a very quick engine start on this machine here. So, control lock is released. Mixture number 3 coming up. Oh, Jesus. Turn your fuel on, you muppet. There we go now, Jemima. Prop is in, mixture's rich. That's all looking good. That's all looking good. Booster pumps number 3. Ignition number 3. And let's see what happens here. Turn on the engine starter, you absolute pillock.
3.
Right, it's coming alive.
6. 9. 12.
Spinach. Oh, heck yeah. That seems a bit low or something, does it? Alright. What I need to test here, friends, is to make sure that the autopilot works. Right? Let's see what happens.
3. 6. 9. 12.
The old spinneroony. Continue. This is all great crack, isn't it?
6. 9. 12.
Great sounds. How's the push going to happen now in this thing? The good old DC6.
6. 9. 12.
Alright, got a good start in all 4. All generators running. Starter disengage. Beacon is already on. Lights. Lights. Static. Pedostatic. Anti-ice will want to check that divil later on. Lights. Hey, avionics. I shouldn't need that one on. Or should I? I shouldn't need that on. Alright. So this is going to be a very quick, a very, very quick test, you know. Right, get the RPM up there now. Warmer up there now, Betsy. Flight controls, full forward. Seems a bit off, but okay. Ground power unit. Jesus, this is loud. Why is it so quiet in here? Seems very quiet or something, doesn't it? We don't actually need to push. We'll just get out of here. All right, spin a rooney. Round to the right we go. So we're planning L22 left. Departure. I may have ran over something. It's absolutely fine. Now Murphy. This is a taxiway. Round to the left. We could have used reverse thrust. Yeah, we could have. Later that day, Murphy only realised that the DC-6 actually had a reverser. Imagine that. Imagine flying this plane for years only to terrible sad, isn't it? Terrible sad. Right, so the challenge here, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be getting the autopilot to sync with what it is I want to do. Because I'm going to have to keep this gadget on my screen now, look. Yeah, like she doesn't want to do kind of nav mode yet, you know what I mean? So thankfully it's a non-standard departure, you know. The thanks Energizer, yeah. Great bunch of lads. Alright, let's see what's going to happen here, right? So our plan is take off, circle to the right, and let's hope this works. Alright, power stable at 30. Whoa, Julia. Now you're talking. For a second I had no, no, cowl flaps are okay for takeoff. And then we'll horse them into cruise. Right, let's go. Take off, power set. Easy knots. Easy now, Jemima. 100. Oh, the wind. Easy now. 120. Oopsie daisy. Positive rate. Here coming up. Oh yeah, this is going to be a problem. She won't do nav mode. Jesus. She'll do heading mode. She won't do nav mode. Interesting. Now we need to be up on what we say? 4,000 or 3,000? Let's see what happens here. Sumner, thank you very much indeed. Cheers, buddy. Is the flight plan active? Yeah, yeah. Not wait, what? Well, that's a problem. Why did that delete itself? Okay, note to self. We need to check the gadget because it deletes itself. Right. Okay, so we want to climb. Speed is okay. We want to climb up to 5,000, and we can put in our final altitude. Let's call it 14,000, right? Alright, get the speed up. And hopefully now this gadget is going to behave itself the entirety of the way. Checklists, aren't they good? Yeah, but I already had the flight plan in there. I blame someone else, you know. Right.
Not the plane, it's the pilot.
Okay, so we have a bit of stuff on VATSIM now. Oh shit, him back. Blame the co-pilot, yes. Who's the co-pilot? He's sacked. Lights stay on. Although at this speed the lights will be shagged. I'll keep them on, just, you know. Right, flaps are up. Engine settings are very fast. And our climb is very crap. Autopilot. V-speed. Let's go 1,200 feet a minute. Now, wouldn't it be great if there was a key bind for the PMS 50? That I could just press a button and it'll open up the autopilot page. Wouldn't that be the cat's meow? Okay. So we're climbing. We'll probably do 1,500 feet a minute here. Hang on a second. Good man, Murphy. Oh, hang on, why won't the squawk machine work? Jesus. Right. It's all coming together now, lads. Now, in terms of our anti-ice, let's be looking at you. Fuel and heater, ignition, prop de-icer, carb de-icer. We're okay over that side of the house as well. Alright, I think we're going to be okay. Yeah, like Flow Pro, if there's a button that I could just bring up the autopilot panel from the GTN 750, that'd be great, you know. But not to worry, it works, lads. Look at the absolute state of that. I mean, have you ever in all your life seen that and it's beautiful? Why do I put myself under so much friggin' pressure? Like, I could have flown the Airbus, you know. Hey, Mike Road is here. Good to see you, buddy. We're going to fly this tonight on VATSIM, you know, because I'm an agent of the highest regard. We don't know why we do these things. We just do. We just do these things. Yes, that's what we do. Flow Pro coming real soon. Well, Sim Update 4 seemingly is coming real soon as well. We could wake up now later on and have Sim Update 4. You know. Right, so this is what the system's going to look at now. Flow for 2024 is tomorrow, says Naughty. Right, let's go with that. Yes. Right. Now, what's the next bit of the jigsaw, Murphy? Let me put my route into this gadget so I don't make a complete and utter balls. Right, so add Origin Airport. Well, it is that of Chicago O'Hare. No, you muppet. Remove Origin. K-O-R-D. D, you muppet. Right. Destination KMSP. KMSP. Our en route waypoints. Pumpkin. After Pumpkin, it's up to Neato. Neato! After Neato, it's Dillon. After Dillon, it is Ronick. Good man, Ronick. After Ronick, it's Kama. After Kama, it's the BAE. Badger VOR. And after the Badger VOR, we're in to do our arrival. Select arrival. The EAU from BAE. And an ILS 30 left. And now we need to load. Oh, there's vectors there. Right, grand. Create the trip. Isn't it ionic or iconic, right? Yeah, Energize. It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? I haven't played it yet, but I will. Right. Activate. And we have some chartage action now on the Garmin. Meanwhile, airplane is slowing down. We want to go up to 14,000. Now, how does one change their speed? Aha. Alright, we're learning this together, lads. Well, alright. Rello, good to see you, buddy. Howdy from Chicago. Hello from Tipperary. Good to see you, bud. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Look at the state of that and all the engines. Ah, isn't it beautiful? And there's snow on the ground, look. Jesus. Let us see what happens here. Now, well, we need to get up to speed. I suppose that's where she's struggling right now. Why do I do these things? Why not pick an airliner, you know? How long is it going to take before we get there? Oh, hang on, change the fields here now. Whoa, Jemima. Change the fields. Give me an estimated time to arrival. Over here, give us windage. And that'll do. Message. Thank you. An hour 36. Okay, no, so it's accurate. It's accurate. We should level off now at 14,000 feet. And that's going to allow me to put the speed into Mother Jemima. Right. And then we can get our engine set up to, like, you know, not be exploding. Cylinder head temperature. Our carb temperature is way out. Still want more than that. Easy. Right, they're on the way. She's now held at 14,000. Excellent. So our altitude is working. VS and the other thing. Cruise power and RPM. And that looks very nice to me. Except for carburetor temperature is cold. We'll fix all that now in a second. They're coming up the road there now. Yup, again, you devil. Now, if ATC suddenly give me a heading, how do we respond to that later on? Autopilot, heading, turn heading. Ah, grand, okay. Alright, that's how we do that. Right, that looks good. Cylinder head temperature, cold. Close the cowls. That'll help with a bit of drag. Manifold pressure up the hill a bit. Okay, it all sounds very calm. Now, why are we only doing 200? We're 53 knots against our nose. Go up the hill, you divil you. Go on, yup, you divil you. Manifold pressure, bring it up there now. Now we are threshing. Oil temperature's a little bit hot, but sure, listen, you'll be hot too. We're in an 81-year-old plane. No, a 74-year-old plane. Should be grand, lads. You're nothing to worry about at all. Everything's going to be grand. Right, I'm happy enough now that I can not break it. Well, I will break it, but I'm happy enough now that, you know, I'm happy enough now. So we need to load in and have a look at our next scenery, which is Minneapolis. Because if this doesn't work, friends, then the crack is really going to start. Madison, St. Paul, get in there now, good and tired. Now, how is this going to work? So we're landing somewhere around the 30s. There's cargo ramps. Here you go. Here you go. Now, I don't want to be parking where I don't want, like, I didn't want a jetway. What's up here? Cargo, military. Cargo, GA. We'll hardly be able to throw. Who's over there now? Do we have like signature or something? Who's that now? There's FBOs over there. Ramp GA. South Parking. That's where we want to go. Johnny Mon, good to see you. Kondo is here. Morning. Welcome in, buddy. Hope you're well. Now the trick will be flying it with ATC. Oh yeah, we'll have loads of fun. We're taking the DC-6 tonight out for a spin on VATSIM, flying from Chicago to Minneapolis. It's going to be hilarious. Oh Jesus, we went to Delta. Right. There's a car after spawning in that looks shocking. Hello, Emerald. Right, get into the plane. And now let's explore Minneapolis. We have a bit of scenery running here. So we have scenery for the airport, but we also have scenery from Samseen for the gadgets. Kondo is doing well. Excellent stuff. You all set for Christmas, buddy? Okay, airport looks all right. It's a huge airport. Whose idea was to fly into here? Naughty gnome! We need words at you. Now, in terms of... Look at that. That's kind of dangerous, look. Is that right? Is that right? It is! Tunnel closed. Jesus. I need to be able to park somewhere that there isn't a gate. Whoa, this is a big, big airport. Look at this, look. You're about to buy yourself a truck. You're getting a truck. You're getting a Skoda. They do a proper truck now, Kondo. I'm just saying, like, whatever false advertising, you know, you're liable to over in the United States, but a Skoda truck, best truck. What do you mean a real truck? Shag off, will you? Real truck. Get a Skoda Superb. I know if... Oh, look at the snow on the car, look. I know a fella who has one and he thinks it's great, you know. This is a nice scenery. Right, and then we have Minneapolis itself. Jesus. Okay, lads, if you're going to Expo, well, you won't be walking to the venue. I'm just saying, you won't be walking to the venue. It's a bit of a... Well, it's not a trek. Be half an hour, I suppose, would we? Very nice. Wait now, what's that jalopy? The US Bank Stadium. We're over here somewhere, aren't we? Oh, there's weirdness and madness, look. Photogrammetry is a bit kind of nuts. Then again, it could be me Sam seeing sceneries. But it does look nice, doesn't it? Okay. This is going to be fun. This is a big old town, this, isn't it? Big old airport. Kando powered Cummins diesels. Cummins diesel? Cummins. Right. It's a big airport. So we're expecting the 30s, in which then we'll be flying in over the Mississippi. And that spins around, you see. So we'll be coming in this direction, look. Now, there's Delta. If we land this way, wasn't there FPOs over here? There is. There's buttons. Casey Wingboy, good to see you, buddy. Welcome in. Thank you very much indeed. Jesus. Happy holidays is right. 26 months, buddy. Very, very much indeed. So, Sun Country Airlines is over there. I don't see much else by way of fixed base operators, do you? Got like Delta Maintenance over here. Yeah, we can park a country mile away, I suppose. Cranked it up this morning. It's about freezing and she fired it up and blasted a nice huge black cloud out the back. ATC stood in the front window shaking her head. Oh, is that your current machine, is it? So you're getting a new truck. But what are you getting? Don't get electric. We'll fall out if it's going to be electric, Hando. It's minus 20 right now. Yeah, it looks cold, doesn't it? Glad to see the Asobo finally hired someone to clean off the ramps. Yeah, it looks good, doesn't it? It's a 1996 Dodge 3500. Your current one or the new one? Wait, hang on. Is that a pickup? The Duali. A 5.9 litre 12 valve with a picture of Greta under the friggin' hood. Hang on a second, Kando. That sounds like... We don't make cars that nice over here. Dodge 1996. No, 1996 Dualo. Duali. Ah, no. Would you go way out of that? Hang on a second. Hang on a second. 3500. You did not get that joke, did you? Julie. Listen, don't go wrecking me, Buzz. It's a Duali, right? Duali. Kando, you did not buy one of them, did you? No way. I'd say now it has the fuel efficiency. You know. That's a Ram, is it? Oh, it is a Dodge Ram. Video on Discord? Nice. Dually means dual wheel axles. Or dual wheel axle. Yeah, so twin tires on the back. Oh, that's very nice. Congratulations. When do you get it? When are you picking it up? Or did you get it? Oh, they are a nice machine, look, aren't they? Get the job done. How much are these going for? 20,000. Odometer reading 150,000 miles. Jesus, that's lively though for 20 grand. Is it? Or is that good value? I'm driving it right now. Your buddy said test drive it as long as you want. 10 miles to the gallon. You're joking. Lads. Come here. Should look at the engine in the... it's maniac. It's a maniac. Think of all the cool... oh, hang on. Look at that. Look. For God's sake, you fit 4 Europeans in this. You lot do with your big, massive cars. That's the size of 4 Europeans. Or, you know, me and 2 other Europeans. You know. 150,000 miles. Engine's just getting broken in. No, it's right. The produces enough torque to make Murphy eat everything. Balls. I've just been vipered. You kept that one quiet, Viper, didn't you? Ooh. Greta's having a fit. Oh, she would, yeah. You could fit 8 stapes in that. You could, you absolutely could. I had mine for trailer hauling. I was getting 8 miles to gallon on a good day. Jesus, 8 miles to the gallon. Trailer hauling. Oh, that's badass, man. I like that. Yeah. Best of luck with that one, buddy. They're friggin' pricey enough though, aren't they? A purr's like a kitten, a mean kitten, being eaten by a German Shepherd and a bear. Right? That's the sound of the vehicle. I do like that, man. That is a badass truck. Hang on, 20 grand and look at the shack and corrosion. Are they out of their mind? Look! It's completely corroded. It's not like friggin' spray stuff, no? Jesus! It looks like your man out of cars. What was his name? Rusty. Doesn't it? Sometimes my genius even disturbs gravity. 215 horsepower at 2600 RPM, 440 pounds of torque at a 1500 RPM for the 5.9 litre inline 6 Cummins turbo. Jesus. Mater, that was his name. Good man, JB. We knew it was, yeah. What do you mean that's not bad? It's shagged. The weight reduction belongs to American cars. Yeah. That's shagged looking. Look at it, it's rusted, man. Well, they don't do it like a bit of powder coating or something. I only replaced my tire storage cable only once. What was it driving on? The beach? Just slap a bit of WD-40 on it. Yeah, you'd want to dip the car. That's not great now. If I saw that, I'd be saying, yep, you devil you. No, in the Midwest, they salt the roads, proper for trucks. Yeah. I saw a chat. Wait, if I saw a chassis like that, I would only be offering 1900. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's kind of mad. Kando, that is a great machine, man. I'm delighted for you. May you have many a day of travelling wonderfulness, you know, and never a day of, it won't start, I'm after breaking it. That's very, very nice, isn't it? Oh, look at this now. Video. Oh, come here, what colour is it?
96 Dodge Ram 3500.
Wait, now hang on. Hang on. Kando said it was, hang on. Have you pictures of this actual device in your, disco! Hang on. Brilliant. It sounds just like a Skoda. Oh, I love the aerial. Jeez, look at the wing. Look at the mirrors on the thing. They've more stabilizers than the friggin' Eiffel Tower. I have to turn me head sideways. It's very good.
I know.
That's deadly. That's deadly. It's a bit squeaky. You don't mind that. That's character, lads. Character, right? Character. It needs some loving. It does, yeah. A hot bath and, you know, a couple of hot meals will do it all the well. Yeah. Congratulations, Jill. It's an awesome thing. That wouldn't last 10 minutes over here, you know. Well, it would. You got it for 6? Jeez, that wasn't bad. 6? What's that in Irish money? 4. Jesus, hang on a second. 4. What do we call it? I don't know. The price of cars over here is like ridiculous. Like secondhand cars, the market here is shagged. You know. But yeah, interesting. Jesus. Gibbo, I didn't even see that. When did he put that up? If I started doing boxes, I could call them Simbrief. Didn't even see it. Yeah, I don't know. If Gibbo with FlightSimTees.com started making boxers, they could call them Simbriefs. That's genius, actually. Would you like some Simbriefs? You know. Yeah, that's crazy. Right, lads, we are in a state of what's going to happen later on because we are going to be flying this machine from Chicago up to Minneapolis. And I'm as excited as you are, right? Because this is either going to be great or it's going to be a disaster. It'll be grand. Get yourself an old Honda. It'll run the wheels off itself. Honda. Be careful not to smash these doors too hard. It might reduce the weight, alright? Need to pick up some popcorn for tonight. Yeah, or Valium. You know, one or the other. Popcorn and Valium. Right, lads, listen, we're going to leave it there. I have to shoot off for a bit of lunch, pick up the missus, and then sit in a cold, dark room staring at myself in a mirror with a candle as I prepare mentally for tonight's challenge. That's what's going to happen. But I want you all to have a lovely day. We will be back live in about 5 hours and 9 minutes as we start this evening's VATSIM Thursday flight. Today we covered the Navigraph Academy. Speaking of which, didn't they say the VFR charts for Ireland? How does this work now? Do they have VFR? They do! And just like that, friends, just like that, the word balls. This is freaking huge! You see? How accurate are we now? Oh, we're accurate. Oh, Jesus, then we're accurate. You see, friends, Navigraph have now just, without even really thinking about it, where's my charts gone? I must have moved them. In one small little movement, we've now VFR charts for Europe. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that fantastic, isn't it? Look at this. Oh, that is brilliant, man. What another game changer from Navigraph when it comes to VFR. That's incredible. And they got the UK in there as well. That's brilliant, isn't it? That's a huge deal. Huge deal. That's interesting now. Because they want you to turn the gadget this way. There we go. How do they manage that one? Shannon. Oh yeah, look, that's real good, man. That's really, really good. You get VNC and you get VNC. Everyone VNC, right? That's brilliant. Absolutely great. Linny, good to see you, Mrs. Hope you're well. 'tis yourself. Right, lads, that's the story now. This is great news. And we're sure listening. We'll be back here later on as we try and take this machine for a flight. So until then, thank you all so very much for tuning in and for your support as always. I really, really do appreciate it. You're a great bunch of lads. And I'll see you in a few hours. This is going to be great.
Hello there.